Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you gotta get spotted. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, it's Friday. It's been a long week. Quiet week. Well, not a super quiet week, but it's been a quieter week. But we are starting the day on the down foot, though, so that's kind of interesting. Let's come and look at the charts and see where everything is at. Okay, so the treasuries appear to still be kind of tilted to the upside, at least when we get that like initial action at the beginning of the extended session. They keep buying it, and that has taken us, well, I don't know if we're quite within sight of the highs of the week, but I wouldn't really, there's not really anything on the docket today that I think would really drive us up there. Well, I mean, we do have, we have inflation expectations, we have existing home sales, we have S&P services and manufacturing PMI flash, but I don't know if that's really going to be enough to drive us to new highs. So, yeah, I don't know. This is going to be an interesting, these are the trickiest days for me to trade. So I think that maybe we'll take some like really tepid sim trades today to see if we can figure it out. But it may just be one of those days that you don't trade, right? S&P 500 taking a bit of a doozy yesterday. I don't know, man. Like, I really felt like that the market was really upset about something yesterday, and there was not any kind of news catalyst that I could see, and all of the like desk reports and everything that I was reading suggested that everybody was kind of like, whoa, what's going on, but that there was not like anything, and that it was probably just like portfolio degrossing type of behavior. So that's interesting and worth keeping an eye on. I don't know if it really means anything for us today, but maybe next week we might see more of those flows, or maybe we'll see those flows shift around. Like there might mean that we're coming close to a decision point. Over in oil, there continues to be some volatility. It kind of seems to me that like things in the Middle East peace talks are not going so hot, but overall, I haven't seen any like super major headlines. Silver and gold, well, they kind of gave up the strongest of the gains. I was hoping that yesterday was going to be like another breakout day, but that was asking too much. Copper still kind of, This is a big drop, man. Tell you what, when something like that, I've noticed that often happens at the top of the copper. It can happen elsewhere, but you get those sorts of things at tops. This is a copper on a higher time frame seems super trendy to me. Japanese yen still looking good, but coming back this morning. So, and the Bitcoin, Bitcoin reaching 100K again. Well, yesterday I was seeing Michael Saylor like practically begging Donald Trump to buy 20% of Bitcoin's suppliers. Like, it's really the sailor pumping is like really getting silly, and I kind of wonder if he's getting desperate. Can we like be at the end of this sailor saga? I would prefer that. I don't know if anything's gonna happen over there anytime soon though. Okay, so I am seeing a little bit of level 2 activity here too. But it's not really at a key place. Does seem like that they're kind of keeping it on the downside though. There's been 2 attempts to kind of turn things positive and they got rejected. So that's worth noting. But this right here is maybe not the best place to be going short. There is definitely some selling flow coming in, though. Well, I think that I have the baby monitor and it is dead. So I think I'm going to go and find the cord for that first and I'll be right back, okay? All right, there we go. Okay, so you guys watched the hockey game last night? A good hockey game. Close hockey game. How are you? I'm doing okay. I went skiing a little bit yesterday. Had a interview. It was okay. Kind of hate when I don't really feel like I have a good feel on whether I did well in the interview or not, but doesn't give me many clues of that particular interviewer. And then I went skiing, but it was like a really short ski. Probably spent as much time driving down there as I did actually skiing. Let's see here. Oh, that's right. Is it options expiration today? It is. Options expiration today. That's something worth noting. We're definitely getting into like the thick of it too, because the rollover in the treasuries is basically Tuesday. And I don't think that there's going to be a whole lot of activity on Monday necessarily. The liquidity over here in March is still good though. Oh, look at them take another step there. A pretty confident step down too. All three of them across the board. Good offers placed immediately after. Ooh, and you know what? I'm gonna remember this time Turn on our strategy.
Block sell.
Wowie. 4K lot hit them at 04 and it didn't tick? What? Okay, so we're definitely getting a flow here. But like I said, when it's kind of like a no news Friday, well, and it's an options expiration Friday, I find the flows in the treasuries to be very difficult to predict. And one of the things I'm a little bit worried about here is that in this situation, I kind of have some evidence to suggest that the best thing to do is to fade it. That's like still very much a theory. We only have a small amount of data to support that theory. But the closer you get into the contract rollover for the futures, the less effective order flow signals seem to be. And that was a pretty strong sell. We're about net 15K sold now, and there was some really big ones being sold. And then it's catching it. So, well, I said we were going to play around with it, right? I think that the play is I wait to make sure that they're done with their selling, and then I go for the reversal. I don't know why I hate the news as to base my trade. Well, it's probably because we've all been trained to believe that trading is all about watching a chart. I think it's kind of ironic that the best answer I can come up with based on the evidence that we have as to how a retail trader should approach trading futures is like the most simple, straightforward concept of trading. Like, understand what's going on and trade based off of that. I'm not saying macroeconomy, interest rates, etc. But why do you differentiate? Why do you differentiate like breaking news versus economic releases, bases versus the macroeconomy and interest rates? Octavius is gonna leg in short. Alright. I mean, that's what I feel like I would normally be doing, right? That's where it's not quite there yet. It's not quite there yet, but that's what I expect my algorithm to do here in a bit. I'm looking at my face. I've got like this one hair that I don't know, everything around it is kind of turned gray, and so it like really sticks out. And now I'm sitting here going like, do I need to start dyeing my beard or something? Okay. I'm just gonna try with one lot on this. Morning, A. Paul. Tell you what, man, you don't necessarily talk a ton, but you're here every day, and I appreciate it. Okay. So I'm seeing a lot of dancing on the level 2, but not actually more volume coming through. It has flipped. The bid is stronger now. Only by a little bit, and only briefly. Okay. Okay, so there I got filled. I don't like the offer that got put on it when it ticked down, but I don't think that that's necessarily significant. It's not ideal, but that's probably neutral. When the data is there, if inflation is high, why would the Fed reduce interest rates? News usually is just a confirmation, which is always late. Oh, I wouldn't put it that way, but there is definitely a lot of question in my mind still about whether or the Federal Reserve should or should not raise interest rates. It seems that that the Federal Reserve and the market have kind of decided that they're not going to reduce interest rates. If they do, that it's going to be late in the year. But the news is not... I mean, I guess it depends on from what perspective you look at. So this kind of comes back to my big pet peeve, which is that a lot of what we've been taught as retail day traders actually came from swing momentum portfolios and really does not apply to day trading. In my view, it doesn't matter whether it's an economic data release, it's breaking news, or it's something that is always known, like that today is well, it's not a triple witching, is it? Is it a triple witching? Maybe it is. But today is a major options expiration. That's something that is known. Like it's always known. Like I can tell you what day they're going to expire 5 years from now, right? Like it's always known. And yet, I have strong evidence to suggest that it affects order flows. I don't think I really understand how options expiration affects the flows in the treasuries themselves, but I know that they do. And so I don't really care what it is. I'm only looking to, here's a piece of information. Does it predict order flows for me in the next 30 minutes? Hello, what happened to pi? I've collected 0.07 pi. Are you talking about a shitcoin? Is that a cryptocurrency? I don't know what you're talking about. There's been a little bit of back and forth at 05, but it's still just kind of sitting here now. I think, you know what? I do kind of like this trade a little bit, but I think I'm early. I think I'm too early. Okay, so there's a down tick at 04. You know what, man? Those cryptocurrencies are so illiquid. It really does not take a whole lot to move them. So it's, you know, you can't really say like what happened to it. Why did it move up big or move down really big? If there was news or not, because just one guy that had decided to put a ton of money in it might have just been pulling it out, and that's all it takes. That's why I really don't feel that cryptocurrencies is very good for kind of day trading that we do. If you want to write a robot, that might be better if you want to write a robot. Provide liquidity for them, but just note that there's some big risks with that. You tend to do pretty well, and then the big move like what you're talking about happens, and you get destroyed. Okay, speaking of which, I saw this story I want to read. A great day for crypto. SEC set to drop enforcement case against Coinbase. Which one? In the latest reversal of the cantankerous policies of the former United States Securities and Exchange Commission Chair Gary Gensler, who officials in the crypto industry complained had sought to regulate the industry to death through enforcement actions. I disagree, but okay. The SEC has agreed to dismiss the lawsuit against the centralized exchange firm Coinbase, accusing the company as operating as an unregistered securities broker. I really think that they should pursue that one. The whole thing about like that they had this lending platform and they were allowing you to trade off of it. That's a bond. That is an unregistered security. Okay, if Coinbase has like said, "Oh, okay, you're right, we shouldn't be doing that," and they've dropped it, which I think that they have, then I guess I'm okay with the SEC dropping it. But if the SEC is like, actually, we're going to let you do that, then I have big problems with that. I have big problems with that. Because if you allow that, then they can do anything. But let's read on and see if there's any more details that might help me sort out if this is really okay or not. According to an announcement from Coinbase, the lawsuit dismissal is still subject to approval by an SEC commissioner before it is officially withdrawn. Dismissing the Coinbase lawsuit still requires a commission vote. Ooh. And the company expects that to happen next week. If this goes through, it's a really big deal, not just for us, but for the whole crypto industry. There's 50 million Americans who hold crypto, and I think the rest of the world, this is an important signal about where things are going. So I hate this argument. It's like, oh, well, because crypto is the way of the future, you should let us do whatever the fuck we want. No, there are rules for a reason, and just because you're a new asset doesn't mean that you should be allowed to break all of the rules when every other asset is subject to them. Maybe like stop trying to run unregistered securities. All right. The SEC sued Coinbase in June of 2023 amid a torrent of litigation against the crypto industry, attempting to frame many firms and projects as either unregistered security brokers or securities in and of themselves, which in many cases they were, placing heavy regulatory and financial pressure on the industry. Okay, they did more than that, and there was some things that the Biden administration did that did really seem like they were trying to squeeze crypto, but not that it succeeded or did anything. Whatever. Wall Street Journal reports that acting SEC Chairman Mark Ueda said that Thursday that the unit would have a broader remit and deploy enforcement resources judiciously, including investigating fraud involving crypto assets. The Coinbase lawsuit did not involve any fraud claims. Ueda said last month that a new SEC task force is considering how to move away from Gensler's approach towards the crypto market. Okay, so they're not entirely sure what it is that they want to do. Because I feel like that maybe their approach and their relationship with the crypto industry was a little bit too antagonistic. But I do think that the cryptocurrency industry was trying to do things that were illegal. And this one in particular, the being able to trade the debt borrowing mechanism on Coinbase is a security. It's in every way. Last week, the SEC filed a request to put a similar case against Binance on hold, citing the pending development of a regulatory framework for digital assets under Donald Trump's crypto-friendly administration. It's a great day for Coinbase and for crypto, said Greenwald. We were committed to defending it to the gates of hell for as long as it took and for as much money as it took. Bitcoin prices jumped back above 99,000 on the headlines, but are giving some of that back. Well, that was written a while ago. We're above 100,000. The SEC complaint will be dismissed with prejudice, which means the agency can't refile it, Coinbase said in a statement. Oh, they should. If Coinbase brings it back, are they not allowed to do anything about it? Because that's... Ugh. because you are essentially allowing them to trade a bond, which is a security, and you're allowing them to create more debt in the cryptocurrency space that they can use to pump Bitcoin. And then if they can do that and you can't actually take an action against them, that would be a problem, because that would kind of give them an explicit advantage. It looked like they were going to uptick at 0.4 there, and it didn't do it. And then there was a little bit of a click there. It was a bid getting placed at 0.3. Oh, that's weird. Oh, that's actually weird. I wish I was paying attention to that price, because that's 1,000 lot that was added there. But are you telling me that it was 3,000 at one point at 0.3? That can't be right. I do believe USDC is backed by real cash, and USDT, on the other hand, I bet is unbacked. So I don't remember the details on USDC, but I remember people posting a lot of information kind of suggesting that while USDC was much better than Tether, that they were still doing sketchy things. Tether, as far as I'm concerned, is a wildcat bank. What they're doing is a trading firm will come to them and say, we want to trade this thing. And they'll say, sure, you give us $1 million, and then we'll loan you 2 million Tether. We'll give you the 1 million Tether, and then we'll loan you 50% too. And then they use that to buy Bitcoin. And then they say, okay, you don't have to pay us back the 2 million, or the 1 million that you borrowed from us. You just as long as it's backed by Bitcoin. So then they're using the assets that they bought to back the loan. They're basically creating money. That's a problem, right? Like, there's a reason why we have rules around, like, how banks can create money. And you have to be a bank to be able to do it. USDC almost went belly up in Silicon Valley Bank collapse because they had their accounts there, but FDIC actually saved everyone, and USDC and Coinbase should be solvent, technically, I hope. Yeah, I bet that Coinbase probably is solvent. I don't like everything that they do, but they probably are solvent. I don't think that they're going away anytime soon. I don't think that cryptocurrency exchanges are going away anytime soon. I just, what I hate is this, we can't make money with the current regulatory framework because, there's rules that have been around for 100 years now to prevent us from manipulating the financial system for our gain and against consumers. And so they're looking for every kind of little loophole that they can find to get around it. See, the other place that this happens, and we talked about this a little bit in that interview with Andreas Klenow, that there's all of these services, financial services, like Yada, probably the best example, that it was basically a bank account, and they told us it was a bank account, but then you look at the reality of it and it wasn't really a bank account. And the people that they were using, the financial service that they were using to kind of get around the regulations involved in that, ended up not doing their job very well. What just happened in oil? Okay, so we need to roll over oil. We should be in April now. CL. Let's see here. I forget what April is. It's J? CLJ? But there was a big drop there in oil. I am seeing an iceberg at 04.5 and an iceberg at 04. So this is still kind of in the like, I think if this is a reversal, I think I got in too early. Well, if it works, the target is 06, so I'll put that out there. Let's see here. Russia could cede 300 billion in sovereign assets frozen by the West be used for Ukraine reconstruction, says Russian sources. Russia would insist in talks that part of the 300 billion be used in Russia-controlled Ukraine. Hey, we got an uptick. That's good. I'm liking this. That probably was why oil is dropping. That's a headline that I think suggests that things are going well for a peace deal in Ukraine, and that would mean more oil coming out onto the market and a lower price. They're really moving now. I don't have everything set up to go and place trades over there because I kind of feel like I could have done something there and made a couple of 25 cents or so. Come on, fill me. Okay. So now here's the question. So I got filled at 06. That was one tick below the inventory cost basis. But they've kind of been going to the other line today. So do they actually get all the way to 08? Octavius took the exit on that. Wait, did I get exactly 3? I did. I got exactly 3. If that was a live trade, I would maybe pay you back for that one, Octavius. That was kind of an interesting trade. Let's just kind of put that one in the back of our heads. This is a time period where I tend to struggle, especially on Fridays. And that trade played out almost exactly how I expected it to. I do think I was a little bit early on it. But, it's hard for me to know
Order filled.
It was like a legit... Oh, wow, we actually got a buy-side imbalance there. Okay. We need to give the robot a better name. It's called simple market order imbalance. We need to name it so that we can just say, okay, Bob. I'm just getting out. Bob's just getting in. There's a wall up top. Oh, you're talking about that. Those big lots at 08. I wouldn't read too much into that. There's always going to be a bit more liquidity at the highs and lows of the session. Of course, the high is way up here at 16. Is it 16? I don't know. The high should be 11.5. I don't see an order at 11.5. That's interesting. That's also where we saw a really, really massive iceberg earlier in the week. I don't know. It did tick down. It might tick down a little bit and then continue on, but it's kind of looking like for that individual leg that the inventory cost basis once again provided a good exit. I don't know, man. It just feels too magic for me, but It seems to work right now. I'd say it's been like this for a couple of years, in fact. I hadn't, I think the big shift change for me was this understanding that order flow signals are maybe counter signals when we're getting late into the contract, and utilizing that line to kind of take those counter trades. Now, another thing that I should note is that the market order imbalance only uses market orders. I got in on that trade on both sides with limit orders, so that's 2 ticks there that I would have gotten that the robot can't get. Yeah, it's below the VWAP. So, but you know what though? I don't know. Okay, so here's my thing with the VWAP. The reason that the VWAP came about is because there are algorithms out there that use a volume weighted average price to determine how aggressively to execute. Like if they're buying and price is below the VWAP, they will buy more aggressively, right? Those algorithms aren't as popular now. It really seems to me that the market prefers to use TWAP algorithms, or they will use algorithms that are kind of based more on market liquidity. Okay, so I kind of question, and there's this whole thing which is like, okay, it seems like price reacts to the VWAP. Does it really? I don't know. All of the backtesting that I've done on it kind of suggests that it's an unreliable signal for anything. I used to spend a lot of time, though, that, I would always use whether it was above or below the VWAP to decide whether I wanted to buy or sell, right? This, on the other hand, the inventory cost basis, you can kind of think of it as a buyer market maker VWAP and a seller market maker VWAP. That's basically what it is it's the average price at which inventory long was acquired over the session, right? So the idea is that when you get to that average price, that market makers will want to rebalance and shuffle things around. So in this case, you can kind of see it does it there, and then we did it there. I'm a little bit nervous about how this worked out because that was a little bit too precise. And I know it's crazy to think that, like, we have that strong of an impact in the market. But it was only a 5,000 contract difference, which is really just going to be like a few small players. That's absolutely something that could mess with us, I don't know. It's curious, isn't it? But anyways, in this case, going back to this, in this case, we're below both of the midlines, right? So sellers are definitely still in control. And this is kind of the thing that I think makes this... Well, let me do something here real quick. Do I want to put on... I don't want to put it on this chart. I'm going to duplicate a new tab. Okay. And then I'm going to put VWAP typical on here. VWAP typical is just a way of calculating the VWAP that does not rely on looking at the price that every order was executed at. So it's not entirely accurate, but it's like 99% accurate in my experience. Light cyan will make it a little bit thicker so you can see it really clearly. Okay, yeah. It is. Interesting. Okay, so one of the things that I did a little bit of investigation on. So the thing that's kind of nice about these lines is that it shows you a neutral zone, right? There's a neutral zone in here, which is like where neither the buyer nor the seller really has the explicit advantage. And generally speaking, the market maker will want it to cross this as much as possible. Like the more that it's crossing this, the easier that it is for market makers to make money, essentially. So, but in this case, like we came right to coming back to neutral and it got rejected. Didn't quite make it to the VWAP, did it? Interesting. So that's kind of where a place where I kind of think that maybe, you know, if you really like VWAP, you might like this better. But I also did a lot of investigation about like, what if the VWAP was down here or up here? Was like the VWAP was down here and then it came back and it bounced off of it or something like that. Those were the setups I was kind of testing, and it was all kind of inconclusive. So, I don't know. Kind of feel like that if you really strongly believed in VWAP, that you would like the inventory cost basis, but at the same time, I kind of questioned the usefulness of VWAP. And to be honest with you, the inventory cost basis, I think that it is showing you something for real, and I do think that it makes a very good target, but I don't think that taking trades off of it, like initiating trades off of it, is a very good strategy. Right? Like what's going to be the most, you know, like what determines where things go is the orders, especially the market orders. So it doesn't matter where we are in relation to the line if a bunch of market orders come in, right? And that's kind of one of the things that I'm trying to point out to people, is that there are really narrow cases where like existing positioning and like where the market maker acquired their inventory at and things like that do matter. But they are not the most dominant force in the market. The most dominant force in the market is the really large institutions that are buying huge blocks of stuff that create these long meta orders that take all day to trade. That's what creates trends, and that's what we should be primarily interested in. And we're really just trying to work out, okay, but in these places when we're not getting really strong trends and we struggle, can we play those better? And I feel like that so far we you know, like when I've tried those trades, they've worked, you know. Have you done any analysis using a whole moving average? So in my experience, or in my back testing, whole moving average on short-term charts performs better than other moving averages. So the whole moving average and the super smoother, and I would note that there's also, you can use is price above or below the moving average, but you can also use is the moving average itself increasing or decreasing. Okay. And yeah, on both of those metrics, the whole moving average seems to perform better than other indicators. So there seems to be something about it that it, for really short time frames, it does do a good job of, you know, like smoothing out the price, but still being very responsive. But that in and of itself wasn't profitable. It was like the only one
Order
that
filled.
really got like, what would you say? That really got to break even. Sorry. I bet that order coming through kind of distracted me. Okay, so it took the -1 on it. Interesting. So I kind of wonder if I take the imbalance, Like, what's the best exit for it? Should I wait for the imbalance to come back to 50 and get out there? That would be one way of doing it. But in order for that to work, I think that you would really need to see continuation. I think that well, you know, we created this indicator primarily to just kind of test this one little thing. And the results that we've gotten out of it so far kind of suggests that, like, at the beginning, that it works really well when there's an imbalance in the market orders. You go with the imbalance and it tends to continue. And then when you get to the later part of the contract, you go against it. And it was meant to be simple, right? But now I'm starting to look at it like, okay, so we've done that. We got this working. We'll continue to collect data and see how that works. Now let's try and turn it into a little bit more of a serious thing. And it seems to me that, like, for the time period that it holds it and everything else like that, like, for one, 10 minutes isn't long enough. And for two, that in a lot of these cases, that I should maybe only be looking for one tick. That, like, when those happen, and because every trade that it's taken so far, it gets in right as a liquidity hole is forming, right? So I'm wondering if you take that and you just have it, you know, a take profit one tick above, how effective that is. I don't think that I would be able to backtest that because the backtester isn't very good at knowing if the limit order would get filled or not, you know? But we could try that. But the question is, should I change that now? Or leave it alone? Well, not today. Let's try and take it easy today. Now, then they came back to that cost basis and bounced off of it, and now we're kind of going a little bit dead. Makes me extremely uncertain what the next step is going to be. I think anyone can take 2 ticks easily out of treasuries. I don't know about that, man. I've definitely had some success in the past, you know, just doing like 1 tick trade. But the issue with that always comes into, like, when it doesn't work. And how do you manage that? So it's actually, you know, this actually, I think, highlights a larger problem with a lot of algorithms and strategies and things that we're trying to do. Is like, if I buy at 05 and maybe let's say that my edge is catching the edge. So I was able to buy 05 and now it's bid. And I have my offer at 05 half. Okay. So my take profit is 1 tick. how do I manage the stop? Right? Because if I say like if it's going to catch the edge the other way, I need to sell the other way and try and break even, then it's going to like take me out of it like every time. Because most of the time when it ticks, it's still kind of, you know, it still kind of flickers back and forth across that price. So then I could say, well, I only want to do it when I'm going to lose, right? But then at what point are you going to lose one tick? You're not going to lose one tick until the bid is almost gone at the 04 half, right? And then the problem is that if I say, you know, I only want to exit like right as it's going to get out at 04 half, right? And I hit that with a market order, there's a really good chance that I'm actually going to execute at 04. So like I've set up a situation where the slippage has a very strong effect on the performance of the strategy. Because basically, like if I never catch slippage, then I'll be profitable. And if I do catch slippage a certain percentage of the time, then I won't be profitable, is basically how that ends up working. Okay, well, I guess I could say a stop limit order and hope that they fill me there. But then if they don't fill me there, then I'm taking way more than 2 ticks, 1 or 2 tick stop now, right? Now all of a sudden it's like, okay, I wait and that one doesn't get filled. So then I really stop over here. It 1 tick lower. And then if that one gets slippage, then I'm actually taking -4. Right? So the 1 tick thing on its own is fraught with issues. Like basically you have to have really, really strong exit signals as well, right? And this kind of more broadly is, I think, the problem with any strategy that kind of has a high win rate and a low R factor, right? Where like your losers are larger than your winners. It seems to me that like the better thing would be, and what I do is, you know, I'm expecting a trend to come in. I get in before the trend happens, and then I just try and ride the whole trend. And then I have pretty good signals for like when the trend is going to pause. I can't necessarily predict the full extent of the move throughout the whole day, but I'm pretty good at predicting where the first pullback is going to be, right? So that's kind of how I play it. But that's why I'm thinking over here on this thing. It's just like, okay, what if I can do something that's like, I'm going to get in long, but, and maybe I'm going to take 1 tick. Maybe I set it to be 1 tick, but I adjust it, right? Like as it continues to sit in the trade and as it continues to get more and more information, it will say, okay, I have enough information now to put my target 2 ticks away or 3 ticks away. And you know, like as it moves up, like if it moves up strongly, I move it up again, you know? The problem with that is that now we're getting into something that's like well beyond our ability to scientifically analyze, you know? Like we're constantly moving it and everything. Is that moving it actually helping or hurting? That's like, you know, because at that point, the different scenarios are so complicated that I can't possibly analyze all of them, you know? Catching a 1 tick is easier in notes. Put a 4 chart of ladders and you'll see the spread, giving you a heads up on the next move, i.e. if ZB targets top of the prior volume node, ZT will turn on the bottom of it. I think that that's kind of a little bit like of a more general heuristic that is kind of just a coincidence, though. That one. I think it's just a coincidence that the average change in the spread between the 30 and 5-year is about the difference of the volume profile. That's an interesting question, though. How would I quantify that? First, I'd have to quantify, like, when there is a move in the spread, how much of a move does it tend to be? And then on the intraday volume profile, how big does the value area profile tend to be? But I would think that if I was looking at the whole day's volume profile, that the value area is probably much larger than that change in the spread. Yeah. But like more broadly, I've seen a lot of people trying to fast scalp ZB and UB. I've seen some people like be really successful with it for a while, but then like when UB punishes you, it punishes you, man. Like that one tick is really nice when you're market making, but when it's moving against you, it's hell. That 31.25 per tick is hell when it's going against you. But I don't know. I kind of feel like that I adjust things as I go, usually. Well, if it's a trend. I guess if we're expecting a mean reversion sort of a thing, I prefer to have like a target somewhere where I think it's going to go to. You're very smart, Samantha. What you said yesterday on Discord? Oh, I don't know about that. I was just like, oh, you're talking about just taking the difference between the start and the end? Well, I don't know if that makes me very smart, but that's basically what I'm doing all the time, right? I'm always coming over here. I'm just saying it's probably one of the most common things that I will say about the markets, right? Is I'll look at this move and I'll say, when this move started, we were at 16,000. And then when this move ended, we were at negative 5,000 or so. So that was a 20K net sell. And then every time that there's a move, I just kind of make a note about how many contracts it was net. And I could possibly make a tool that lets me go click here, and then it will tell me the difference in delta between those two bars. I can certainly add that to the list, but it's just kind of like, is it really that useful when you can just go, oh, okay, 16 minus negative 5. Oh, okay, so it was about 21,000 contracts, right? So I think that what you're trying to do, D, you can do manually in your head most of the time. Especially if you're doing it in treasuries, right? Because you get plenty of time to look at it and like calculate it, right? Yeah. He was yesterday he was going through, so there's a bug in cumulative delta.
Order filled.
Oh, it's going long again. Okay, so here's the other question about it. What if we set the bars to be, instead of stay in for 10 minutes? Because that's what happened here. Was it got in. I think it actually got in there. Ooh, yeah, because it took -3. It got in there, and then it waited 10 minutes. And maybe what it should do is it should wait 45 minutes. That would probably make more sense. Or maybe it should stay in an hour. Maybe an hour would make more sense. because the statistic on the autocorrelation is an hour. So if you take an individual order, it's a buy right now, and you come back an hour later, it also tends to be a buy. I think after today we will do that. Let's change it to an hour next week, okay? And then next week we'll get the rollover and we can test it with an hour going through that whole next month. And on Monday, we can also look at maybe gaming out. This is something that I've never done before. So this would be getting into something that could be quite complicated. But like, let's make something that manages the orders itself. Instead of just saying enter long, enter short, let's make something that says put a limit order in long, and then if that limit order hasn't been filled within a certain amount of time, then maybe we reassess. If we still feel strongly about it, we mark an order in, and if not, like we can game out all of those sorts of things to try and get something that most of the time it will get limit orders. Did you make one or two? On the trade that I took today, am I showing it? I took 3 ticks. Yeah, you can see it. The performance over here, that's because it's 15.625 in the treasuries. So 3 ticks is 46.88. I took it at 04 half and took it off at 06. And the reason I took it off at 06 was because that's 1 tick before the inventory cost basis line. So I literally, because I took these trades on the Jigsaw side, I can't really show them, have Ninja Trader show them for you here on the chart. But I got in here, I think, somewhere in this area. Let me use the brighter thing so it's easier. I got in somewhere around here, and I got out here. So I was able to pretty effectively predict the place that it was going to stop here, and then the place that it was going to stop here on the first rung up. So it's interesting. I mean, it's kind of contradictory, isn't it? Because on one hand, I'm saying that like the market is really statistically efficient, and it's really hard to make a profit from just finding some sort of statistical aberration in the market, and that really you want to predict the order flows and use the informational inefficiencies that you might have to predict things that aren't priced into the markets yet, but that will be priced in very, very soon, right? But then on the other hand, I am kind of saying that when you don't have that, when one of those things is not involved, I actually can make calls on the technical levels pretty accurately. It's just that I know that, 3 ticks is nothing, and that on the larger scale of things, I have to be able to predict those orders, right? Like that's the whole conundrum, is you can go in and you can have a strategy that like wins most of the time. And if you do that, the consequence is that when you do lose, you lose more than when you win. And how do you deal with that? Well, the ideal thing would be that when there's not really anything going on and the technicals are in charge, that you're able to just take that little bit of noise out of the market. And then when there is something that's going to go on and a trend is going to come in, you're already in on there. And so now you kind of get both sides of it, right? Now you kind of get the little bit of noise most of the time, and then you catch the huge winners on the trends, and you get the best of both worlds. But we're still very early in on getting really good at that kind of technical side. Okay, so Donald Trump is making some comment about taxes that are applied to online sales that big tech companies really, really hate. Okay, so it is an order that will open the door to applying levies in cases where there are digital taxes levied by other countries. Is that why the S&P 500 is selling off so hard? So, yeah. So, the thing that I'm hearing is kind of something that my initial gut reaction is, oh, like tech companies will probably really like this. You know, like this is something that really drives Google and guys like that crazy, right? So wouldn't the market like that? But it is kind of a tariff thing. It is kind of saying, okay, if you're going to tax our tech companies, then we're going to increase tariffs on you. So I think that the S&P 500 is selling off because they're reading it as tariff news, right? Well, what do we got to work with here on the S&P 500? It kind of looks like that they're already well past. So these lines aren't as in the S&P, or sorry, in the treasuries, the lines are like really hard. Like it really reacts almost to the tick. The S&P 500, it tends to be a little bit more nebulous. And you get this thing where like the stop out zone can change really quickly. But I am seeing this like 6,100 level. Yeah. Like somewhere, well, yesterday's low was 6,105. So that's going to be the benchmark I'm going to look at here. Oil has continued. It's, you know, when we were picking up on that, that was about right there. That's continued a little bit. It's bouncing a bit. Ah, yes, and in 5 minutes we get the PMIs. So now is probably not a good time to be taking a position. Yeah, I think he's going in the direction of eliminating the IRS income tax and getting revenue on spending, sales tax, cap and trade. Well, yeah. Or at least that's what he says. And I'm not questioning that he doesn't believe that. I'm questioning how realistic that is. Like, surely he knows that it's unrealistic to move to that kind of a regime. Where all taxes are paid for by tariffs. I don't think that that's practical. They're going to cross the line here in the treasuries now because the S&P 500 is selling so hard. Income tax just exists to service national debt? Not quite. I think you're close. Do you ever hear this argument that's like, okay, if they can take out debt, then why do we have to pay taxes? That doesn't make any sense, right? Why do we pay taxes? if the government can just print the money, then why do we have to pay taxes? Why do you think that is, guys?
Order filled.
Hey. Oh, it still took a 1 tick loss on that, even though I think it was mostly positive action while it was in it, because again, it's only 10 minutes and it used market orders, so it takes a 1 tick loss on it. That in and of itself. So the first thing would be, how does that match up to what the backtester said? I think that it might be fairly accurate to the backtester, though. If it is accurate to the backtester, then that's really curious that only holding for 10 minutes. I think that those were the parameters that I backtested with. I have to go back and look, I guess. Nobody's gonna tell me why we have to pay taxes. They pay taxes to fill politicians' pockets. Well, okay, so a lot of politicians are making money off of things like this US aid and these government agencies and stuff, right? So politicians can get paid by government agencies. They don't need the taxes for the politicians to get paid by that, right? The politicians could get paid from the money that the government just prints. Okay. So the federal income tax services the debt. Nearly the entirety of every dollar paid just rolls into interest payments on the debt. Okay, but what if we just didn't do that? Okay, like, what if there was just no tax and the debt just continues to increase and increase and increase, but the government just puts it all on debt? Right. This is the argument that the modern monetary theory people are making, right? We're the reserve currency. It doesn't matter how much debt we take on. Right. Okay, maybe if you get to like 1,000% debt to GDP ratio, then maybe that affects the reserve status of your currency. Like maybe that affects interest rates, things like that. But let's just kind of ignore that part for a second, right? Because I'm getting at something very, very specific. Why? Oh, okay, so the PMIs, they really reacted to the PMI. Wow. And it's bad. Services, 49.7 versus 53, so a contraction. Manufacturing, 51.6 versus 51.4. Actually better than expected on that one, but the composite becomes 50.4. The Treasury's really reacted to that. I wonder how much of the selling in the S&P 500 was front-running that instead. And of course, our algorithm, because it only stays in for 10 minutes, it missed that jump. Otherwise, it would have been a great trade, right? Who controls the Fed? Well, it's a complicated thing, but essentially there is a board of governors that are appointed by the president and confirmed by Congress, and then they have a bunch of member banks that they service. So the members of the Fed are actually the member banks. I'm getting some good absorption up in here, so that's, you know, if I had held that, I think that I would have been taking it off right here, but it's so soon that I really can't discount them continuing out a little bit. Also, by the way, so let's come back over here to the inventory cost basis again. Where does the inventory cost basis suggest that they will have a hard time sustaining that action? Oh, like literally right there at 12. So now, I don't know, this is a situation where, does that matter that significantly? So you know what we also need to do? Just note that the market maker is going to be super unhappy there, okay? Like,
Block buy.
they can pass that. It's rare, but they can go through that. But in the volume profile, are we? No, not quite. 15, half, 16. Okay. Can we sell it? I would not recommend taking it as an entry. No. Because what often happens with these sorts of things, let me come back over here. Okay, this is what usually happens is it will, now that it's reached that point, kind of go sideways, and then maybe later it will come back up like this, right? And this line will start to do that, right? So if you take this as a short signal, and it does that, then you're going to lose, right? This would only work if this were to bounce and come back down to there. And I don't think that that's actually very likely. You get what I'm saying? Oh, wait, sorry. I'm drawing a picture over here and I didn't even change it. Silly me. See what I'm saying? So what often happens is when you get to that line, they start to struggle. That doesn't mean that it reverses. It just kind of becomes like a temporary range zone pullback sort of a thing. Right? And then what will happen is the market makers will rebalance their inventory here. And then the buyers will kind of wait for that to happen, and then they'll push it again. So taking this as a reversal is a much more risky trade. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that the metrics that I have says that just reflexively selling it at that point because it hit that point isn't a good trade. That's the whole thing is that it's like, because that becomes a temporary resting area, it becomes a good exit. If you're already in, it becomes a good exit. Because what are the chances that it actually does go another leg higher? I don't know. And I don't want to sit in it forever and or lose. But it's, the chances of it coming back are high enough that I want to protect my profits, but they aren't high enough that I want to actively add risk on that. Right? Oh, no, that's a thought. It is. I'm saying that coming to the line is a good reason to reduce your risk. So can I kind of place everything within the context of this thing happening makes me want to increase my risk versus decrease my risk? And that's how I play it tick by tick as I'm trying to manage the trade. I have to think about if that kind of shift, maybe the brain works something out and comes up with a good idea of how to approach things from that, right? Okay. As I understand it, the Federal Reserve is not government owned. So that's kind of deceptive, to be honest with you, because who owns it, I don't think necessarily means what people think it means. So here's the thing. if you think of the Federal Reserve as a banking institution that services customers, who does it service? It's not you or I. I can't go to the Federal Reserve discount window and borrow money from them. They service the banks. So it's the member banks. It's Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and all of these systemically important banks that are considered the member banks, right? And so the Federal Reserve, like the money, comes from the member banks, essentially. Not the money, because I mean they kind of can print it, but that's why they say that like the Federal Reserve is a private institution, you know. but again, like who controls you asked who controls the Federal Reserve? Well, who controls the Federal Reserve is the Federal Open Market Committee, the FOMC. They meet, you know, every 45 days or whatever it is, and they have a meeting and they decide what they're going to do with interest rates and decide all of their policy and all of that. And those are elected, or not elected officials, but those are officials that are nominated by the president and then confirmed by the Senate and on all of that stuff, right? They serve for a certain term, and then the president has the choice to reinstate them or replace them. And that allows them to be independent of the politicians. Right. I think my wife just came home. The dogs are barking like crazy. On this one, I'm a little bit concerned. So that services PMI going into contraction is a bit of a surprise. Is that enough to really shift the whole market's expectation of things? I don't know. But it's a big enough of a one that I'm really wary of the short. If it works, I'll be interested to see if they come back to where the cost basis will be. And they kiss. Okay, but we got to go back to the question, though. I feel like that you guys are afraid. You can give answers that you're not sure are right. It's okay. Why do we have to pay taxes? If the Federal Reserve can just print the money, then why do we have to pay taxes? Shouldn't the government just be able to just print as much money as they want? Oh, okay, so we have debts that we have to pay off. We'll just print more money to pay the debt. Why don't they do that? Ask ChatGPT. Okay, that's a good. I think that ChatGPT will give an answer that I don't agree with. Let's see. Why do we have to pay taxes? Why can't the government... Oh, if the government can print money... If the government can print money, why can't everything just be paid by new money the government prints instead of having to take it from us in the form of taxes? Okay. Let's see what ChatGPT says. If the government just paid money to pay for everything instead of collecting taxes, it would cause massive inflation. Here's why. Inflation and devaluation. When new money is created without a corresponding increase in goods and services, the value of money decreases. This leads to rising prices, aka inflation, because there's more money chasing the same amount of goods. Loss of trust in the currency. If the government printed endlessly, people and businesses would lose confidence in the currency. This would lead to hyperinflation, where the money becomes worthless, like what happened in Zimbabwe or Venezuela. So that was the thing where I was saying, well, okay, that might cause the bonds to react. That might cause the currency to react. Let's just ignore that part for now. So that's the part that I was saying, kind of like, let's ignore that part. Okay. Taxes help control inflation. Taxes remove some money from okay, you know what? ChatGPT is getting it right. Listen. Taxes remove some money from circulation, helping to control inflation. If the government only printed money, demand would skyrocket, driving prices up even faster. What else is it saying here? Government borrowing power. Governments issue bonds and take loans based on their ability to collect taxes. If they stopped taxing, lenders might not trust them to repay debt, making it harder to borrow. Yeah, interest rates would go up. Or, sorry. Yeah, interest rates would go up. Printing money benefits those who get it first, usually the government and the banks, while hurting savers and workers. Those whose money loses value, taxes distribute the burden more equitably. In short, taxes are a way to fund government operations without wrecking the economy. Printing money recklessly would lead to runaway inflation and economic collapse. Okay. So, really what we're talking about is we have the economy, right? We have, well, let's make that bigger. Let's make that a thicker line. We have the economy. And we are going to print money. We're going to have money that's going to come into the economy. And then we're going to have money that comes out. Right? This is the money supply. This is, you know, like M2 money supply, right? So what are some things that create it? These are loans. These are government spending. And I would also say imports. Because this is money that already existed, but not in the US. It was over there, right? Is it getting in again? It's getting in again. Interesting. We'll see. Okay. How does the money come out? This is loan repayments. And taxes. So, if we didn't have taxes, that would remove this one thing that we have to kind of help moderate the money supply. Because the thing is that you kind of want money coming in and then coming back out. And then coming in and coming back out. But, you know, because you could say, we don't pay taxes, so we don't take money out. Just don't loan as much money, for instance, right? The problem with that would be that then the velocity of money would decrease. You would get deflation. Okay. Oh, and that was the existing home sales and sentiment. Let's see here. So what was the sentiment number? 5 year, 3.5% versus 3.3 expected. 1 year, 4.3% versus 4.3% expected. That expectation is like way too high, but okay. It looks like that there's a little bit of selling because of, you know, that is higher inflation expectations. Like there was definitely some reaction and everything to it, but the price seems to be staying stable. Okay. Anyways, so if we got rid of taxes and we had a more balance, because this is also would be exports, right? And we have a bigger balance between imports and exports. Okay, I don't know. Maybe that leads to an imbalance. I might be able to adjust the interest rates so that I'm not making as many loans, so that the M2 money supply is still in line with things, right? Can I balance things out to make that work in terms of like the overall money supply? Yes. Yes, you can. So then what's the downside of it? Well, the government spending and the loans and everything else kind of gives us control over how the money supply is distributed. Right? What's happening right now is more money is going to people that are closely associated with the government. That's what's going on right now. So most of the money is being printed to government employees and contractors, defense contractors, etc., etc. That's where like a very, very, very large portion of the money supply is going to right now. Right? I don't think that that's right. We should take that out, right? But if you don't tax people at all, for instance, then what? There's going to be, a lot of money rich people that will have, right? So maybe we're saying, okay, there's a lot of money supply is concentrated in this number of people, and we would really like that bit of money supply to be distributed better across the population. Or there's too much going to this industry, we would like it to go to this industry, right? So when you see all of these discussions about things like we should get rid of the income tax and we should just have import taxes, for instance, right? Okay, well, when we had that regime, the government expenditures was much, much less. So I really don't think that could pay for it all. But just forget that part again, like the practicality of it and everything. What is this really about? This is really about how the money supply is distributed across the US economy. And essentially, they're saying that not enough of that money supply is going into manufacturing and creating goods that can then be sent abroad. And instead, too much of the money supply is going to the people that make money from importing things from China. That's really what it's all about. Now, you don't necessarily have to get rid of income taxes to kind of make that shift. But just understand, that's the real battle over here. It's different industries and different sections of the economy kind of vying and saying, you guys in the government should use your levers to direct more capital this direction. That's what it's all about. Okay, so let's take a brief look here at how things are going now, right? So again, I said I don't like to go short against it because what happens, right? They stopped there. So that was a good exit, wasn't it? It was. It kind of pulled back a little bit, but it's still kind of going up. And you can see this line is kind of going here. It's going to ride that line over and over again. And it can continue to go up. Like when it's trending up, that's what's going to go. What do I care about right now? Well, we've got a flow coming in. And that's a piece of news that, especially on a options expiration day, I'm not sure how big of a change that's going to be. It's already 30. This is already, you can see, we were basically at 0 when we started. There's already 30,000 contracts. I don't want to stand in front of that. My expectation would be that we continue to get long flows. So instead of going short here and hoping for it to come back to here, I would like to already be long and maybe holding it, maybe looking for an exit, or wait for it to come all the way back down here and buy it on the hopes that it bounces back again, Like, it's all this thing right here is the most powerful. If this is going up, the tendency for them to come back down to this is going to lose. This only matters when nothing's happening over here. That's the way I look at it. Government sponsorship of OnlyFans models would take a lot of money out of circulation. Yeah. Well, okay, so, and that comes to point number 2 about this whole thing, is that the way that we distribute the money in the economy does have very strong impacts on the growth of the country as a whole. So putting a lot of money into government contractors, into bureaucracy, essentially, 'cause I really feel like that's where a lot of it is going, is to people that are just maintaining existing rules and all of these sorts of things, but they aren't like creating new industries. They aren't creating new innovations that are doing new, right? They aren't doing things that grow the economy, right? So that is why, generally speaking, the more of your money supply that is going into government operations, the less money supply that you have available for growing the economy. That's why we have the monetary system that we do, where the bulk of the money is supposed to come from new loans created. And what do we do? Well, there's stipulations with that. You have to pay the loan back. You have to, essentially, if you're going to go and take out a small business loan, you're going to have to be, put it into something that generates revenue, essentially, that grows the economy, generates revenue, so that you can pay it back. And that grows the economy. Right? If like one of the things that I see suggested a lot is, oh, we're going into an AGI future, so let's just have basic universal income. Yeah, you're printing all of this money all of the time. What if in that we just give it to the people directly instead? Well, I'll tell you what would happen. Those people, you're giving more money supply to consumers. What are they going to do? They're going to go and they're going to consume it. And so that's less money supply to growing the economy, more money supply towards buying things, and probably the cost of all of those things go up and you get inflation, right? Okay. So they have pulled back a little bit more well, it's still back to the 12. So there's definitely, man, I tell you what, I wish I had made note when I said, hey, it seems I can see something happening there at 12.5, how much volume had traded there when it happened, because it was really clear to me, and it's really gotten stuck there. Is that trickle up theory? Well, there are a lot of people on the left, especially, that really feel like that they shouldn't have to work. is really what it comes down to, I think. Is like, hey, everybody's needs should just be able to be taken care of, and I should just be able to like live basic and not have to struggle to be able to like eat. Oh, was that just 10 minutes just there? Oh, that's interesting. But it probably was another tick lost, huh? Yes. Only down $100 so far, though. And you know what? In relatively trendy action today too. But that's kind of the sucky thing, is that this should do well into trendy action. Probably, yeah. No. Well, it's mad late. I mean, the thing that's funny about it is that the main reason that it's taking L's here is because the exit is a set 10-minute bar exit, right? Like after it gets in, it holds it for 10 bars and then it gets out. And basically what happens is it doesn't move during that 10 minutes. Market sells at whatever price it is at the end of that 10 minutes. And yeah, because if I had described this strategy to you and you were trading it, you would probably have made money on every one of those. You probably would have made one tick on every one of those, because you would look at it and you say, okay, it's time to get out. Let me put a limit order in there, right? So that's really interesting it's kind of something that like my backtesting never factors in, right? The backtesting that we've done in the past is basically always use a market order. Well, if you're always using a market order, that's actually a lot bigger than we realize. If you come back and it's profitable even with only using market orders, then you really got a strong edge, huh? Well, let's not say a strong edge, but, you know, much better chance of it being able to convert to live with you managing the trades and everything, right? But at the same time, I'm kind of sitting here like, okay, let's tell it to manage. What about the commissions? That number 102.81. Sorry, let me pull it over here so you can see. It includes the commissions. I wish that it would show me the history, but the only way to get the history is to pull up the trade performance. It took 8 over the past week. Okay, yeah, because it took some yesterday too. Oh, it doesn't, and none of them have. They've all been basically all -1s. That's interesting. That's really interesting. But again, like the funny thing is, actually, you know what? We can change this because, you know, like I want to sit and watch it, but I think we understand what it's doing and it's doing things the way that we expect. I can come in here, disable the strategy, change the numbers, re-enable it, and it will show me, it should show me what it would have done, I think. Let's see. Strategies, disable the strategy. And then we're going to come in here and we're going to change the, oh, it's under properties, parameters, time exit. We're going to change that from 10 to 60. What is its entries based off of? It's based off of seeing a strong imbalance between the market buys and market sells over the past 10 minutes. So if in a 10-minute period, there are more than 60% buys than it buys. Oh, I forgot to click enable. Let's make this big and see if I can sort it out. The trades here this morning. Imbalance long at 231, and then it held it for 1 hour. Okay. But how come? Oh, okay, I see. So one thing that the bot's going to do that the backtester's not going to do is that it runs on each tick. So if the imbalance goes above 60 interbar, which it would have done over here. So I actually think that if it was if it had taken a trade, it probably would have gotten in at around 7:05 and then it would have gotten out at 8:05. So I think that the actual behavior would have been this with a 1 hour holding time. But it says that it took along here just before the news and it is still holding it. And it will hold it until for another 15 minutes or so. Okay. Cool. I'm gonna try it with 60 minutes next week. And then let's do that. Let's do that with 60 minutes next week. Let's think about it and talk about how we want it to manage the orders. And then the week after that, we can change that part. It seems to me that there might be some edges in just how you manage your entries and exits, but how would I be able to sort that out? Because those are things that I don't think that the backtester would be able to see very well. Well, unless I think that I probably could do it with like 1 tick data. Maybe it could. Maybe we could do it. I don't know. We'll see. What was I talking about? I was talking about, the economy. You don't want to give, basic universal income won't work because you're putting more of the money supply in the hands of consumers that will consume it instead of using it to grow the economy. Right? Okay, so if we have more money supply in the hands of manufacturers, that probably certainly in the short term would probably be a good thing, actually. That in of itself would probably be a good thing. Except for that, then you're also taking it away from other parts of the economy, and those parts of the economy are going to hurt. So it's going to be a bad thing for the economy in the short term. Like, because it's going to take time for you to see the benefits from more money going to the manufacturing people, right? So probably what you get in the short term is recession or something like that, right? Soft period. But really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get you to think of where is the money coming from and going to, right? Like, really what we're doing is we're just talking about order flow from the perspective of the entire US economy, right? So we have the larger US economy, we have money flows coming in, we have money flows coming out, but then we can also look in the inside of the economy, and there's all of these different boxes, sectors, people, consumers, etc. And how is the money going between all of these people? And or is, because of the rules, the money going to migrate from this side of the economy over here over to this side of the economy over here? Because that's what's really going on. That's really what all of these arguments and discussion about economic policy and all of that, that's really what they're doing. Is that they're saying, hey, I'm over here. I feel like I should be given more money supply. You need to shift more of it over to me. Well, conservatives are generally right that if you can make the box bigger, that's better for everybody. But how do you make the box bigger? You want as much of it going to growth. The problem is that, like, the levers that you have, you don't get as much control over it as you would like. Maybe that's kind of an advantage of being Chinese, right? I wouldn't want to live under the Chinese system. I think that there's some really big problems with the Chinese system, but we should really try and look at it from the perspective of a system. Here's the microstructure of that system. How does the microstructure of that system affect where the money supply goes to and how that affects the growth of the country? And there are some advantages to the Chinese system. I think the whole conundrum is, how do you get the money to the places where it would be the most effective without playing favorites and, undermining the whole system by everybody believing that you're just giving money to your favorite parties? But that's why I think capitalism works so well. It's not because the markets are perfectly efficient. It's because it gives people economic freedom, right? It's actually quite inefficient compared to what would be perfectly inefficient, at least. But people feel like that they have agency. People, if I want to start a business, I can. There's a lot of risk involved in doing that, and I don't have the balls to do it, but you can. And people have economic freedom, and people have an incentive to participate, and that's why it works. Because other systems, once you come in and you start, you want everything to be perfectly efficient, so you say, this guy should get money, and this guy shouldn't, and then it kind of turns into, well, it doesn't matter what I do, because I don't make money from it. Then why even participate? And that's why those kinds of systems don't work in the long run, right? Most economic analysis that I see out there when we're talking about, you know, the policy this and, or you know, government spending that, that's what they're arguing about. Let's see it for what it really is. We have to do a birthday today. My wife just told me we need to get a cake. I'm like, should we get an ice cream cake? I think we should. I would prefer an ice cream cake, but I don't know. You know what you know what, guys? I have a problem. I feel like I have a problem now. All I want to do is go snowboarding, man. Like, when I was a kid, basically what happened was my parents signed me up for this ski school. Well, it was, you know, we would snowboard, but you'd get a lesson, which for some reason every year was the same lesson. So like I never got like intermediate teaching. We just went and we did it ourselves. I feel like that I snowboard better than most people on the mountain, but it's not because I know what I'm doing. It's just because most people don't know what they're doing. Most people on the mountain are tourists that maybe get to go skiing once a year, right? We got to go every weekend, so of course we'd probably be better at it in that respect, right? Certainly not an expert. Every once in a while I'll see some guy come out of, you know, the trees or whatever that really knows what they're doing, and I'm just so awestruck. But I skied, and then when I became an adult, it was like, well, I'm not going to spend $500 to ski or whatever, you know, like I had stuff to do, so we stopped skiing. And it's only been this past year where I felt like that I was financial, you know, doing everything else that I wanted to do financially, where I could splurge on buying a bunch of ski equipment and everything. And now that I've done it, I almost kind of feel like guilty, like I let my people down by not skiing for 20 years. all of a sudden it's like, oh yes, that's what we do here. That's what our people are about, is we ski. And I should have been skiing this whole time. Why wasn't I? And why wasn't I involved in understanding like what was, because that's like one of the biggest parts of the economy in Utah is skiing. All I want to do is ski. Problem. All right. What are we going to do when the snow melts? So I remember as a teenager just thinking about, I should be going snowboarding right now, like every day in the summer. Oh, Dee sent me a video of somebody snowboarding. Oh, wait. I think I could maybe do that, but I don't do jumps. My plan for next year is to buy some better protective gear, like some padding for my butt and stuff. And I'm not really interested in park, but you know, being a little bit more aggressive on the free ride and doing some jumps and things like that. So I can't do anything like that. That's funny. Oh, are you going to show me a knuckle huck video now? Yeah, I've seen this before. Let's see. Oh, wait. You gave me a specific timestamp. There you go. Oh, no. It was already passed. Here we go. These things are just absolutely bonkers. Oh, man. Oh, that's so cool, man. I've seen that one before, but every time that I see one of those crazy knuckle hucks, it's so bizarre looking, right? Oh man. You were just watching it last week? Yeah, I get so many videos like that in my newsfeed. The thing last week was, what do they call it? The kings and queens of Corbett's. So there's this collier. I don't know how you say this word. I never heard somebody say the word. I've only ever read the word. Coulier? That's kind of like a spot in the mountain that's kind of like the water's, it's kind of like a natural half-pipe, but really, really steep. And there's this one in Jackson Hole that's just absolutely nuts and world famous. And they have this big event where everybody jumps down it. That's more of a ski thing than a snowboard thing, but snowboarders do it too. They kind of chomping at the bit right there on the highs. I don't know if they're gonna go for it or not, but Trump is talking right now, and they asked him if Russia should be happy about the rhetoric coming out of the White House, and Trump said no, but I think they really want to make a deal. This last one is really amazing. You like the soundtrack? Oh wow, what is this guy doing? Yeah, it's kind of more park stuff, right? So when I was a kid, the terrain park was not really a thing. It was like at the time there was crazy people in the streets doing stuff like that, and then the ski resorts were like, oh, we should make terrain parks. And like after I stopped skiing, like the years after it was when they built all of the terrain parks. Oh, what? Okay, now that is creative. That is creative. You just skied out the back of a truck. That was cool. I like that. But the reason why the skiing is a problem is because like I always will have a little thing that's like, okay, like I need the little bit of the dopamine boost, etc., 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 right? But this is something that like is dominating enough of my thoughts now that like it makes me want to not trade. Like it makes me want, oh, no, screw trading. Let's just go skiing every day. See, the problem with that is that like I could be like, okay, I'll ski every day and I'll only trade when the ski resorts aren't open. But then that's basically the summer when like it's the worst trading, right? I'm being a little bit too nonchalant over here. I am getting big imbalances again. Okay, I want to go back to something that Uzi said earlier though, which was that he was saying that like it seems like it's kind of late, etc. So yeah, like there's a lot of the problems that it has is that there's no edge in the exit. It's just a time-based exit. So we're really trying to see the edge in, okay, if there's an imbalance, does it continue through? Well, what are we learning? Well, number one is that when we backtested this before, it worked really well at the beginning of the contract and not so well at the end of the contract. And this is a time period where we wouldn't expect it to do well, right? Okay. But under the current circumstances, what happens? When you get an imbalance, it really, really moves things. But by the time that you reach that threshold that you're like, okay, there's a really big imbalance in here, what actually happens? That's when the flow stops. So it does kind of end up, like in this instance, okay, like this only happened because of news. So just forget this part right here, right? What happens? It gets in and then the flow subsides. So really, this imbalance thing, ideally, would be an exit condition, right? Ideally. at least in today's circumstances. I think that the thing is that earlier in the contract, these flows become strong enough and trendy enough that you can get away with that. That temporary pullback doesn't matter because the flow just keeps coming. Paul Tudor Jones de-stress was to go skiing. Yeah. You know, yes. So on Wednesday, I had an interview, and I think it was just an HR screener. But after the HR screener, and I would even say it went well. But like I felt really tired and mentally exhausted after that. Yesterday, I had an interview that was a more serious interview. It was an hour long. I don't know if it was good or not. They weren't asking me technical questions though. And then I went skiing, and when I came home, I felt great. I thought I'd come back and I would just be absolutely spent, but I was not. So I don't know what that's about. But it could also be like what I ate that day and things like that. I find that if I've really gotten into this thing where like my insulin response is a little weird, and if I eat something really sugary, my insulin response is too strong, and it just eats up all of the sugar in my blood, and then there's nothing left for the rest of the day, and I'm just exhausted. So I just can't eat really sugary things because they make me feel tired. Like I really need to get something that's like, I need lots of carbs, but they have to be low glycemic index carbs, or I feel awful. So like I eat a bran muffin. This is what I usually do. Bran muffin or still cut oats in the morning is usually what keeps me going good. And then you have to have an okay lunch. Do you have a preference on blacks or blues or greens? Well, so for snowboarding, you generally prefer to go on blue trails because you want something that gives you a lot of room to turn. And you would prefer to have like smooth, groomed trails. So like if it's a black trail and it's been groomed, then like great. Yeah, I totally go down that. But most of the time, the reason that they are black is because they are not groomed, and or they are very, very steep. And so all of the skiers just put moguls all over it, right? So I can get down that, I can go over the moguls and everything. It's just not as fun. But I would really like to get some. So the snowboard that they gave me, I just rented one, and I was like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be getting or whatever. But it's been a while. So they what they did is they really just gave me something that was easy to ride. So it's like an all mountain board. It's a rocker board. So it doesn't really have super strong grip. So I would really want to go and get like a really nice free ride board that, you know, has some camber to it that can dig in so that I can kind of attack that more off trail section of the mountain. So there's a whole section of the mountain that's basically like this one mountain is the expert mountain. I'll just show you. You go to Snow Basin. Okay, so like, here's the mountain, right? And this area, and this area are the two major thoroughways. And then there's this section over here that's kind of like a separate section that's just an expansion, but we don't go over there as much because it's windier over here. And then this is the expert section. All of the trails over here are black trails. They're almost entirely ungroomed. This whole area, especially up in here, is like, you know, tree skiing. It's like the one area, because they're really particular about at this ski resort that you don't go off trail. Like, you're not supposed to go between the trees over here. But this area is an area that's marked that you can do tree skiing. This is for experts. And I avoid that section because I feel like that I don't really have the gear to tackle it right now. How long to get from top to bottom? I'm not entirely sure. I think that I would say that if I didn't stop at all, it would be between 10 and 20 minutes. But right now, I tell you, one of the things that's really bothering me is that when I was a kid, I remember that we would just ride this gondola that goes up to the top from basically from here to here, and then come down and do that like 6, 7, 8 times a day. And now when I go, I can maybe do it like twice, and I have to stop like 4 times going down it. Like, it just, I get tired. I'm breathing hard. My calves are sore. My quads are sore. Sometimes a little bit of soreness in my foot. And I think that part of it was maybe like the way that I was riding, I was wasting a lot of energy trying to turn harder than the board was really capable of doing. But maybe it's just that I'm old. I don't know. Quebec, Mont Tremblant, same idea. 20-minute down some hills in Toronto, close to me 3 minutes. Oh yeah, no. We have real ski resorts in Utah. Yeah. I used to really, really love going over to this area because it was often less touched. Like, if you were going to go down groomers, the groomers over here were better. But it's so windy. It's so windy. And then the other thing is up here at the top, this thing right here. So like, here's the gondola. Gondola goes here, and there's this little traverse, and then you can kind of come down through here, right? And this traverse is actually on the backside of the mountain. This traverse is actually on the backside of the mountain, and it's a really thin trail. So like, you're up there, and it's blowing like 50-mile-an-hour winds sometimes for some reason. I don't know why it doesn't do it over here. But over here, it gets windy. It gets really, really windy. And so like, all of the skiers, that like really scares them for some reason. Like, for me, I'm like, well, like, I got all of this gear on. I'm all covered. Like, the wind doesn't really bother me at all. It doesn't really change much of anything other than that maybe you can't see. But the skiers, and especially the kids, it just really scares them. And so they're going down this goat path, you know, pizza all the way down, right? And meanwhile, I'm on a snowboard. There's not really enough room to turn on this thing. I need to just go. You know, I can't really slow down without like worrying about that I'm going to fall off the side of the cliff here. So that is oftentimes you stop and then you fall over because the skier in front of you is just going so darn picking slow. So that's another reason why I don't go over there as much anymore, not by myself. Now, I guess another thing is that if I'm going to go over here, if I'm going to go into these things, you see where it's kind of like lines. That is like, it's a, what do they call it? And they have it listed over here in the legend. Restricted access. area. Yeah, so there's going to be a gate somewhere here. In this instance, the gate's right there, right? To get into that area, right? And you're skiing along trees. Trees kind of scare me, man, because I've seen all sorts of stuff where people ski too close to the tree and they fall into the tree well and stuff like that, and then you can't get out by yourself. So I am not gonna go over here unless I'm with other people, and I've been going by myself. So next year my brother is supposed to just to get a pass, and then we can do it. Maybe I can convince my wife to learn. She don't want to do it, but maybe I kind of, in my head, I feel like, oh no, I can convince you. Like, you just need to have the right gear, and you actually know what you're doing, and then you'll love it. But maybe she just doesn't like the cold too much. I don't know. But you see, I've already spent way too much time talking about it. I think that what happened is, like, when you're a teenager, you have more dopamine, and that is your brain preparing you for what ends up you doing for the rest of your life. Like, that's the time when you can kind of see the opportunities and learn the thing, and then that's what you're going to do. And I think that basically what happened was that was the thing that we did as kids, and that his memory has just kind of been locked in there away for 20 years, and then it finally come back and I'm able to do it again, right? And so it dominates everything else. Because as a kid, it was that and Unreal Tournament. Those were my things. S&P 500 pushing lower. They are below 9,100, or sorry, 6,100 now. Well, clearly below it. It's turning scary there now. And is that really all because of the digital taxes tariff sort of deal? Momentum rout extends into second day. JP Morgan warns more to come. Yeah, because this... Here. Let's look at this from the perspective of a momentum trader. You know what? From the perspective of a momentum trader, it's not so bad. Like, that day in December was like way worse. I'm not so sure that we're really getting to places where like really momentum guys are getting triggered in. You can see there from the chart. Let's see. I would like to see if maybe next week we can get to that, like, what is that, 5,900 or so? And then reassess. We really think it's that big of a deal or not. I'm concerned about the market, about the economy overall. I see an economy that is much weaker than the stock market and the media narrative that we've been fed for the last 6 months. Because I've been in it, and it's rough. It's really rough. I can't express, like, I feel like I'm handling it really well. Well, I probably won't be handling it very well if I'm not able to find a job in the next month. But I've been pretty positive. I feel like interviews and everything have been going kind of pretty well, and it's just kind of, a lot of it is luck of the draw. Like, there's a lot of competition, and a lot of that competition is coming from like Google and stuff like that, right? So, but there are some real weaknesses in here, and the stock market seems overextended. And I've this whole time I've kind of been looking at it like, is this really like they're just kind of letting everything continue on the way that it is, so that when it finally falls apart, Donald Trump will have to take the fall for it? Even though I don't think that the weakness that we're seeing right now really has anything to do with Donald Trump. Maybe in March numbers, so we're getting close to that. Maybe in March numbers, then you would start to really see Donald Trump's impact on things to some extent. But I would only expect to see that impact on things that were related to business skittishness because of tariffs and policy uncertainty, right? I think that, like, for instance, the services coming down right now, that may have already been baked into the pie before Donald Trump ever got in. Moscow demanded U.S. NATO withdraw forces from Eastern Europe in Riyadh talks. Romania says Trump's team under Rubio refused for now. I hear that was it President Trump talked to President Zelensky by phone? It really sounds like that something, with Russia is, I don't want to say imminent, but like the next month or two, His tariffs have had a direct impact on price hikes? Well, but again, I'm saying that, like, the timing of it, right? You're not going to be able to see it in the numbers until March. So, like, the one that I thought was hilarious was the CPI. Okay. Almost like 60-70% of the sample period for the last CPI was while Biden was still president. So it's like trying to draw conclusions from that is really sketchy, especially when we had been seeing some signs of weakness, especially in the labor market, going all the way back to last summer. So, I've kind of been expecting PMIs to drop below 50 for a couple of months now. I'm kind of sitting here like, well, it's about darn time. That number doesn't surprise me. If Trump tariffs, so first of all, the thing on the tariffs is number one, they didn't really do anything yet, right? all they did was try and scare everybody that they were going to do it, and then when Canada and Mexico, bent the knee enough, they said, "Oh, actually, we made a deal. We were delaying it by a month or whatever the deal is," right? Like, it hasn't actually happened yet, right? So that's the other thing. If Donald Trump's tariffs come in and have a damaging impact on the economy, and they will to some extent. I mean, look, we lived through it before. This is the thing that I think is really, really weird, is that Donald Trump was president before, and he did tariffs before, and we saw the effect on the economy before. So we kind of can see what the deal is, right? Yeah, it was a period of economic weakness. It wasn't a recession, but there was a period of economic turmoil because of the tariff war with China. And the tariffs never went away, by the way. And life moved on. So it wasn't the end of the world. Okay, so make a claim and stick by it. How long does it take for a policy to take root to the point that those policies are to blame or to credit? You have to ask a much, much more sophisticated question than that, comrade, because you're talking about like a really, really broad set of policies and a really, really broad set of metrics that you're looking at, right? So there are going to be some policies that haven't been implemented yet, but will be implemented, and then we'll see their impacts, right? There are going to be some policies that you're going to see their impacts right away. You're going to see some policies that it will take up to 6 months for you to see their impacts on them. Like as an example, when the Federal Reserve changes interest rates, you don't really see like full follow through into how that affects the money in the economy. It's like lagged by 6 months, right? And we're talking about a president who's only been president for a month. It's been a month now. right? And which policies did he actually put in? So, like, to come in and say, like, every data point is because of Donald Trump now because he's president is just absolutely ridiculous. Which policy and which data point are we going to talk about? And then I can kind of tell you when we would expect to see effects from that and how much of what we're seeing right now is, you know, there is going to be a little bit, I think, of businesses trying to anticipate and adjust before the policy is put in place, right? But again, like with the PMIs, because that's the one that we were talking about in particular, right? We don't have enough data to be able to disentangle how much of that was business skittishness because of policy uncertainty versus things that were already baked into the cake because of, you know, a weaker labor market and all of those things, right? With tariffs more broadly, here's another point that I would make is that I'm still not entirely sure that we're really going to see significant tariffs. Like, so do you notice that the president kind of, they put out a lot of trial balloons and things like that. And the thing that it seems like that they really settled on was reciprocal tariffs. They basically said, if another country puts tariffs on us, then we're always going to have our tariff be the same. Because for the longest time, we didn't do that. And now he's saying we're always going to reciprocate. And that's basically what they've settled on. So that means that you don't really get more tariffs unless the other countries do it. So, like, for all of the talk and bluster about the tariffs, I'm not entirely sure that you're even going to get the same kind of, like, quote-unquote tariff war that we got in Trump's first presidency. I guess it depends on China. But everything that I've gotten from China so far kind of suggests to me that China is way more, what is the word? Amendable? Like China seems way more interested in a deal this time around. Like, I think that they'll have an easier time of it this time. I'm not really convinced that it's going to be like this all-out back and forth war all summer like we had in when was this? 2018? Right? Partly because China's still kind of hurting, right? So I don't think that they really want to play that game. Especially since it was like Trump put the tariffs in place, Biden kept them, but Trump could escalate again, and then is the next president going to take them off? Probably not without getting something for it, because it is a kind of leverage for him. The Chinese might be kind of figuring out that, well, yes, maybe we can think longer term and we can outlast one U.S. administration, but in that kind of a time frame, it's really not worth it to try and play that game either. Last plane. Wait, where did he say something about the planes? Getting rid of FEMA and leaving it to the states. That's it. You know, it's an interesting one that like that money should go to the states, probably because the states do a better job of the disaster rate. That's absolutely true. Oh, where are you talking about planes? There must be a comment there because I don't have things as live chat. Maybe there's a comment that I missed. Oh yeah, there was. If Biden fired hundreds of FAA employees, including the FAA Safety Advisory Board, and planes started crashing, the GOP would be losing their minds. Well, I think that you probably are right about that, comrade. Like if there was a sudden increase in, okay, I don't know if there actually is a sudden increase in plane crashes. There's certainly an increase in reports about it. There's definitely a lot of weird stances happening, right? And I have yet to see any explanations for them or anything that would point to that it had anything to do with a policy change, right? But I think you're right. The GOP, there would be some people in the GOP to some extent would be probably be trying to blame it on Biden, sure. Yeah, Biden kept some and actually raised some on Chinese. That's true too. Yeah. But do you think that has impacted China's calculus on it? Did China think that if Biden won, that the tariffs would just be rescinded and everything would go back to the way that it did? Because that's really not the way that it played out, was it? Instead, what happened was we got a break, everything's kind of reloaded, and now they're facing down another mini tariff war when China is in a much worse place economically. I kind of think that the Chinese are looking at this and going like, you know what, it's not worth it.
Order filled.
Not worth it. Okay, wait a second. Was that? Oh, okay. So what happened there was we did finally get the 60-minute exit. That was probably somewhere around here. And now it has crossed that 60 threshold again, so it's getting in. So it will try and hold this for an hour. Well, I don't like that because that means... because I want to stop streaming. I can hear the kids getting out, so it's probably time to stop streaming. But I will let it go, and we'll be able to see on Monday how well it did. Do we blame? So you know what? Let's be like really specific, because I don't blame. I don't blame Biden for train derailments or bridge collapses. Maybe there was individual people that would try and make that claim. But by and large, I did not see people try and blame Joe Biden for the actual derailments themselves. But I certainly saw a lot of discussion about the response to train derailments, and a discussion that I think was well deserved. I think that especially that one crash where like chemicals were released, I think the way that they handled that was absolutely awful. A lot of that had to do with that the Biden administration just wasn't very good with the PR. I tell you what, for as strong of a hold as they had on the media, that like they were able to hold the media back from revealing that Joe Biden was clearly going senile, they weren't really actually very good at it. Like their press secretary was not really very competent, in my opinion. Of course, everybody always complains about the press secretary, but I felt like she was particularly bad. You know what, though? I think, going back to the thing that kind of triggered all of this, I think that pretty much every time that I've seen a new president come in, I've seen this whole argument about whether the state of the economy is because of that president's policies or the previous president's policies, for every presidency that I've ever seen, right? Because the reality is that it's a really complicated and nuanced it's a really complicated and nuanced subject, and the politicians don't care about that. The politicians just care about trying to score points. And the Democrats in particular really don't even care if it's true, as long as they can try and get people with it. And that's kind of the more important thing that's going on, right? Like if there's really something worth talking about in politics, I think it's that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are coming in and are really taking an axe to government bureaucracy and really shifting the government bureaucracy around. In many respects, it is kind of just a return to the pre-Bush Clinton era, when a lot of government bureaucracy really started to really come in and take its hold, where they became like entities and powers unto themselves that, you know, the people there had a really strong effect on the way that policy was handled in the United States in a way that president and Congress couldn't really do anything about. So I feel that in many respects, this is just kind of a return back to the way that things were before. But you wouldn't know that if you're reading Reddit, man. Holy shit. Reddit is going absolute batshit crazy. I'm sorry for swearing, but like I just can't stress how negative of a thing I think that this is. Because like I can understand disagreeing with a policy, like thinking that preferring that the government agencies call all of the shots instead of having to you know, acquiesce to what the administration says. But I think that's you know, I disagree with it. Like I think that the Constitution was that the president is in charge of the executive branch, and all of those things fall under the executive branch, right? So he has control over those policies. But Reddit doesn't just disagree with it, right? They're like absolutely losing their mind. This is the end of our democracy. Anybody that's not absolutely lighting their hair on fire must be a Nazi. And it's just absolute crazy reaction to it. And it is not good for the society and for the people involved. I'm starting to see stuff all over the place where these people that are really following it, like on the left, it's hurting their mental health. It really is. It's just like absolutely crazy bonkers. Man, because they really think that like the United States is coming to an end. We're in a fascist dictatorship now. It's so ridiculous. It's just the most ridiculous hyperbole. But like it was always bad when in Donald Trump's first term, but like it somehow they've taken it to a completely different level. And especially with things like, for instance, Donald Trump, you know, he took a victory lap for kind of ending the whole what do they call congestion pricing in New York, and then he called himself the king of New York, right? And everybody on Reddit was losing their minds over him calling himself king. See, he really does want to be a dictator. Why is it? Explain this to me. Why is it that when a Democrat is president, that every political story that comes through, we have to be really careful to understand all of the details, and we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and we're going to make sure that we consider the context in which the thing was said and the situation and whether or not he was joking or you know, what it actually meant. But then when it's Donald Trump, everybody acts like they're autistic, and we don't consider the context of the comment at all. We don't seem to understand jokes. It's just like, it's so just, it makes no sense. It's such a crazy world over there, man. I'm not just lying. Hey, what did I say that I'm lying about? Because I can go and find you posts on Reddit real quick if you want. Here, I'll tell you what. Let's just go to Reddit and we'll point out the things on Reddit that they're saying that are ridiculous. Well, the first thing it shows me is from AMP. That's kind of cool. It's showing me good stuff. Okay, I advise animals. Okay, so they're still trying to talk about that Project 20, that Donald Trump is intending on implementing all of Project 2025 or something like that, which is kind of ridiculous. Like, there were some things in Project 2025 that were kind of crazy, like stuff about birth control and things like that. Okay. But they did dismantle the bureaucracy. Okay, cry about that. husbands are being replaced before programmers. I'll divorce and leave my husband for ChatGPT if he could be put in a physical body. You know, we were talking about this the other day, actually, because I showed my wife this video where they've got these two robots, and the guy gives the robots instructions. It says, use your AI that you've just been given to put these objects away in the scene and work together to do it. So like there was some cases where there was an object on this side of the table and the most logical place for it to go would be over here. And so like the robots hand the objects to each other to put it away and everything. So it really was like, holy crap. Robot butlers are the next decade. Like, it really seems extremely likely to me that in the next decade we'll have robot butlers. And I told her, I bet you that there's going to be a day that will come where you will because she was like, that's kind of creepy. I was like, you watch, there will be a day will come where you will prefer to talk to the robot than to me. Guarantee it will happen. Project 2025 has checked about 10 blocks. Oh, yeah, that's fine. But I mean, what's the actual claim that's being made? Is the claim that Donald Trump does intend to like Project 2025 was made for him and he endorses all of it? And that's a ridiculous claim. Are there some things that they want to do that all of the Republicans want to do? Yeah. So just because it was in that does not necessarily mean. No, I disagree with that completely. The definition of, if you look up the definition of fascism, first of all, there is a lot of biased, like there are people trying to move what the definition of it is, right? If you're really going to be the most precise about it, I really don't think that you can call anything fascism outside of World War II era Germany and Italy, frankly. Some people seem to have morphed the concept of fascism so much that it basically encompasses any kind of right-wing government, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Well, some of the key tenets of fascism, particularly as it comes to policy, the administration does not fit those whatsoever, okay? Fascism was basically a controlled economy. It was big government. This is the exact opposite of where Donald Trump is moving things. Donald Trump is for a less regulated economy, less government involvement in the economy, less government regulation, smaller government overall, right? Well, why don't you? Which definition? You didn't even hear what I just said, man. See, here's what's going to happen is you're going to pull up your definition that you like, which is going to be, oh man, what's this guy's name? Well, I can't even remember what his name is. I can search for it. There's like this guy that he's got like the 10 defining qualities of fascism. I disagree with it. You want to use Merriam-Webster's definition of fascism? Okay. According to Webster Dictionary's version of fascism, fascism refers to a way of organizing society with an emphasis of autocratic government. That does not fit Donald Trump at all. Dictatorial leadership. Well, Donald Trump talks like he wants to be a dictator, but he hasn't done anything that's actually like dictator yet, right? And the suppression of opposition. I don't see that at all. I see Democrats trying to suppress Republicans considerably, but I don't really see that suppression of opposition. Okay, but the word entered English as a result of Mussolini's political group, members of which were called fascisti in Italy. The word fascisti and fascico, both referring to a bundle, were used to represent labor and agrarian unions in Italy since at least 1872. Ah, okay, so what did they actually say in Webster's dictionary? that really the word was meant to refer to a specific political movement from a century ago. Okay. So I really don't think that Donald Trump fits the definition of fascism according to Webster's dictionary. Where are we going? We're going to go down here. Okay, here we go. Here is an example of Reddit being batshit crazy. Because Donald Trump is president, you think that you should buy a gun now. I really think that those are dangerous things to be saying. If I was a moderator on that subreddit, I would be deleting that post. Did a job application experiment, realize that no one is actually hiring. There really is like a lot of fake jobs out there. The job market sucks right now, guys. It really does. Oh, r/aliens. If aliens aren't here, why haven't they communicated with us? Counterpoint. Why would aliens be interested in us? Oh, that's an interesting thing. Okay. Sometimes when you shoot your mouth off in the media, it bites you. Brad Marchand didn't hold back on his thoughts about the Tkachuk brothers' comments. What were their comments during the work? I hadn't seen anything about them, but I don't like the Tkachuk brothers overall. The hockey game last night was really good, by the way. Just remember, it's not over. There's going to be an Olympics soon. That's the real prize, right? You know what? Let's just go back up here. Because the subreddit that really, I think, is the worst offender on all of this sort of thing is advice animals. Okay, so they're trying to encourage people to participate in a national strike. Okay, well, I would expect that for Reddit. I would rather fight for Europe than the United States. This kind of implies that he thinks that the United States has entered into a fascist dictatorship, right? But he's not outright saying that in that one. Russian war propaganda. I don't know if Donald Trump is spouting Russian war propaganda. Maybe he is. I think that Republicans overall have kind of been influenced by Russia and don't realize it. Okay, here we go. They think that democracy has been dismantled in less than a month. Okay. These are things that I think that it's batshit crazy. Well, we dismantled some bureaucracy that that they believe is government waste, fraud, and abuse. I think that a lot of things are going back to the way that like regulation and government bureaucracy was like 20 years ago. But like dismantling democracy is a batshit crazy thing to say. That's a batshit crazy thing to say, guys. Because that's not what's happening. No country is fighting with Donald. They're simply ceasing business with the United States and finding other trading partners. That one doesn't make sense, actually, because don't you think that all countries are always trying to find other trading partners? It's objectively in their interest to get as much trade with other people as possible. So why would this change any of that? That one doesn't make any sense. Not to mention that nothing has happened yet with it, right? Everybody got all uppity about that they were going to do tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and then they bent the knee and nothing happened. The American Night of Long Knives is coming. So now you're saying that that Americans are going to go and start killing Jews? Wait, is that it was an attack on Jews, right? Night of Long Knives. Yeah. Oh no, this is maybe when they took over the government. Ordered a series of extrajudicial executions intended to consolidate his power. Okay, so Advice Animals is now predicting, by the way, anytime that you see this guy on r/Advice Animals, it's probably bullshit. This really, it should be shitty political predictions right here. That's what this meme is, the shitty political predictions meme. He thinks that Donald Trump is going to start executing government officials to consolidate power. That is a batshit crazy thing to say. Saying that in public and trying to convince people that that's what's going to happen is a batshit crazy thing to say. And you are objectively harming people by saying things like that. That again is like a level of craziness that, depending on the nature of the subreddit and so forth, I would delete. I wouldn't want that in my community, because that's bad for people's mental health. There's gonna, like, I can look at that and I can kind of say like, okay, maybe it's hyperbole, and people have these, okay. But if you're autistic, or you're like a more vulnerable person, and you don't see that kind of nuance, right? And you start to incorporate that into your worldview and the way that you see things, that's objectively harmful to you. Finally joins NATO after 70 years. NATO collapse. Okay, NATO's not collapsing, but okay. There you go. R/advice animals thinks that Donald Trump declared himself king. Okay. Why is it that all of a sudden when we're talking about Donald Trump that everybody becomes autistic? Donald Trump said hell to the king because they killed the congestion pricing thing in New York. Okay. Why would he say, let's not be autistic and let's think about context and things like jokes, things like that, right? Okay, so what is the context? Context number 1, Donald Trump killed the bill. Context number 2, Donald Trump is from New York. So he's taking a victory lap. He's from New York. Okay, so is him declaring himself king really literally him saying, I think that I'm king now and I can do whatever? No. It's just kind of puffing himself up and being like, yes, I am the greatest, right? It's like in that, in GoldenEye, and there's that Russian programmer, and whenever he does something cool, he's like, I am invincible. Does he actually think that he's invincible? No, that's just what he's saying to take his victory lap, right? And on top of that, as far back as I can remember, people always called Donald Trump King of New York. Who's King of New York? It was always Donald Trump since the 80s. People called Donald Trump King of New York. I don't know. Like, that's where he's getting it from. So this post right here is like straight up autistic. This is the part where you get up in arms. So because Donald Trump made a tweet about, hail to the king, and you on Reddit are autistic, we should be having a revolution? This is batshit crazy. This should be deleted. I can't believe that Reddit allows people to post this kind of shit. This is like objectively harmful to people's mental health, to their view on the world. It's sharing a view of the world that is just so far off from the reality. And I would hope that most normal people, from the polling and everything that I see, normal people do see that, okay? But there's a lot of autistic people on Reddit. They don't understand that, first of all. And second of all, it's harmful to the website. Like, how can anybody stand being on this website anymore when this is the kind of shit that people are shoving in your face all the time? Yeah, no wonder Reddit missed their subscriber numbers. How are they doing, by the way? How bad is it? Ooh, it's bad. It's pretty bad. They were already falling into the subscriber growth thing, and now they're like way lower than that. Hey, listen, they've still had a good run, right? Like they can still go back all the way back to 100, so they can lose another 30% and it would still be a win on Reddit. But still, man, like this website is just going downhill. This one, I think they're talking about one day ago. So that must have been like they were saying that Elon Musk was stuttering at CPAC. But Elon Musk is autistic and has always been uncomfortable talking and always like stutters, kind of like I do, frankly. I really don't think that's... Anyways. There might be more to what they're saying on that I'm not familiar with what they're talking about. Remember when the USA wasn't Russia's bitch? Okay. I do think that the Trump administration are being a little bit more favorable to Russia than maybe they should be, but I don't think that they're Russia's bitch. I think that Russia really, really wants a deal. Nobody ever referred to Trump as king of New York. Listen, I've heard people talk about, I don't think that there was anybody more famous in New York than Donald Trump since the 80s. If Donald Trump has not been king of New York since the 80s, then who is king of New York? Because it's always been a thing, right? Haven't you watched Newsies? I'm not going to sing. I'll probably, if I start singing, they'll probably, have a copyright strike. But come on. It's always been a thing. If it wasn't Donald Trump, then who was king of New York for the last 30 years? Come on, man. Come on. I'm trying to think. Who else would we be? Rudy Giuliani when he was mayor? Maybe, but I don't think he'd call him king of New York because usually king of New York is a business magnate, right? Michael Bloomberg? I don't ever remember people calling Michael Bloomberg king of New York. Okay, wait. Well, let's ask ChatGPT. Okay. Yeah, okay, you lived there for 40 years. Let's just ask ChatGPT. I think that's a great way to... who is king of New York over the past 30 years? Give me a list of the top candidates. The King of New York title has been debated for decades, with different eras and industries influencing the conversation. If we're talking about hip-hop, where the title is most commonly used, oh, that's interesting. Here's a breakdown of the top candidates over the past 30 years. Okay, no. We want to go... Okay, stop, ChatGPT. Okay, that's interesting, but I don't care about rap. I'm more interested in business and political leaders that would be called King of New York. Damn it, ChatGPT, you stop embarrassing me. Okay, the title King of New York has been attributed to various influential figures in business and politics over the past 3 decades. Here's a list of notable individuals who have significantly shaped New York's landscape. Michael Bloomberg. Oh, it's not going to mention Donald Trump, is it? Because it's ChatGPT. Yeah. Okay, we'll ask it. We'll ask it if it does it, all right? No, I'm not giving up on it yet. Michael Bloomberg is one. I did kind of pick, is it going to be Michael Bloomberg? I had never heard that, but he kind of seems to be the most successful. Oh, Larry Fink, that's interesting. I don't really consider him as, I don't think of him when I think New York, though. I don't think that, you know what we should do? Wait, hold on a second. What is it called? Grok? Try now. Okay. Who is king of New York? New York. Give me a list of political and business leaders over the past 30 years that are the top contenders for the title or have been referred to as King of New York the most. Will Grok say that it is Donald Trump? Political leaders: Rudy Giuliani, Michael Bloomberg, Andrew Cuomo. So this list seems more like what was. Hold on, let's pull this out. Business leaders. Oh, political leaders. Okay. Rudy Giuliani, Michael Bloomberg. Hey, these are matching up pretty similarly. I feel like Andrew Cuomo is better than Bill de Blasio, isn't it? I forget who Bill de Blasio actually was. He wasn't the mayor, right? Oh, he was the mayor. Okay. From 2014 to 2021. And then Andrew Cuomo was 2011 to 2021. I don't know. Eric Adams. I don't know if Eric Adams qualifies as King of New York. I don't know. Al Capone. Banks. And there you go. There you go. Are you saying that Donald Trump was an admired figure in New York? I think so. No, I think that at the very least, I think that Donald Trump thinks that he's been King of New York. I mean, listen, if Donald Trump was here, he would be arguing that many people have called him King of New York, right? Okay, business leaders, Donald Trump, Michael Bloomberg, Stephen Ross, real estate developer. You see, I would expect them to be real estate developers, so I feel like that answer is better than ChatGPT's. So, like, Robert De Niro is King of New York? What? Okay, maybe. I guess I do kind of associate Robert De Niro with New York, but Jamie Dimon. How is Jamie Dimon not on this list, OpenAI? You know what? I think Grok's answer is better. But Grok's answer does mention Donald Trump, so I don't know. Do I win because Grok said it and OpenAI didn't? I mean, come on. More generally, doesn't Donald Trump kind of think that he was admired in New York before he became president, at least? And can we also admit that the title King of New York has been a thing? And that him saying "Hail to the King" does not necessarily think that Donald Trump is appointing himself a dictator? Like, that is the part that I'm kind of sitting here like, why do I even have to explain this to people? Is there really that many autistic people out there? Yeah, that's true. When he lost the civil fraud and defamation suit in the hush money case, Trump on the right was complaining that he couldn't get a fair trial because he won. Well, that's true, because New York's opinion of him changed as soon as he announced himself as a Republican presidential candidate. It was like exactly at that point. Well, actually, it wasn't that point. It was really when he started attacking Obama. Right? When Donald Trump started to say, "I really don't like Obama's policies," that was when New York's opinion of him changed. Before that, Donald Trump was a generally well-liked, admired individual. Absolutely. Stephen Ross is interesting. It mentions Larry Fink as well over here too. I don't think of New York when I think Larry Fink. Okay, what does Grok say? As of February 21st, 2025, there is no single consensus King of New York. Historically, Donald Trump was most explicitly tied to the title in the 1980s and 1990s due to his real estate dominance and media ubiquity. Michael Bloomberg likely held it the longest over the past 30 years, blending business and political power from the 1990s to 2010s. Today, Eric Adams might claim it with his current mayoral swagger, while Jamie Dimon or Larry Fink could stake the quieter economic throne. The title's fluidity reflects New York City's ever-shifting power dynamic. I feel like that this answer from Grok is really accurate. I don't know about that one. New York turned on Trump when he took the ad out wanting the Central Park 5 executed. Oh, I don't know. Let's ask Grok. I don't live in New York. I mean, I do know that was the thing, but I think that I was still that he was. I really didn't see this antagonism to Donald Trump until he started tweeting about Obama all the freaking time. Okay. When did New York turn against Donald Trump? And I ask it that simply. I don't think that question is going to get me a very good response from the AI, but I can't think of a better way for me to frame it for it. So I'm just going to go with that. Okay. Oh, well, maybe it's going to give me something nuanced. Wow, it's actually giving me a ton here. Whoa, wow, Grok is giving me a much longer answer than I thought it was going to give me. Okay, let's read it. New York's relationship with Donald Trump has always been complex, and there isn't a single moment when the state or city definitively, quote, turned against him. Instead, it is a story of an evolving sentiment shaped by his actions, persona, and the city's political and cultural identity. Trump was born in Queens in 1946 and rose to prominence in Manhattan as a brash real estate developer in the 70s and 80s. During that time, he was a celebrated figure in New York's tabloid culture. Think flashy headlines, high-profile deals like Trump Tower, and larger-than-life image as a self-made business mogul, though he inherited significant wealth from his father, Fred Trump. Back then, he was less a political figure and more a symbol of New York's glitzy ambition, even if some saw him as a caricature. The shift in perception began gradually, tied to specific events and broader trends. One early crack appeared in late 1980 and the early 1990s with his highly publicized divorce from Ivana Trump and the financial troubles of his business, including bankruptcy filings for his Atlantic City casinos. Okay. New Yorkers who once cheered his swagger started seeing him as overextended and less invincible. I think this generally is an interesting thing because, like, more broadly, when I look at like who is successful in business in the society, it seems to me that the people that are the most successful in business are people who took big risks. And Donald Trump is an individual who takes big risks. I'm not entirely sure if taking big risks is entirely appropriate for politics. My conclusion at the end of his term was that taking big risks in politics doesn't necessarily pay off. But then he became president again, so I'm kind of like, let's wait another 4 years and see how well, like what is the Republican Party's political position at the end of 4 years of Trump? If it turns into like in when's the next election? 2028? In 2028 that the Republicans just get like absolutely swept out of office, then maybe the conclusion still is that kind of risk taking doesn't work. But right now, like, I think if you held the election today, I think that Donald Trump would win by an even larger margin than he did in November if it was held today. So right now it's kind of working for him. Let's wait and see. Okay, anyways, now I was going to talk about the Central Park 5. His 1989 stance on the Central Park 5, taking out full-page ads in New York papers calling for the death penalty after the wrongful conviction of 5 Black and Latino teens, also soured some opinions even after their exoneration in 2002. Trump never apologized, planting seeds of distrust among those who saw it as reckless and racially charged. Yeah, that's so. The thing I find interesting about the way that Grok said this is that there is actually a lot of information and nuance in this, right? Like, they point out that they were not exonerated until 2002. So, like, when Donald Trump took oh, hold on. What the heck was that about? Are you guys still there? For some reason, my OBS just did something weird. I think we're still here. I'm going to check something real quick. I'm just going to check my CPU and everything and make sure there's not something else weird going on. Oh yeah, we're still in that position. But it's not working very well. It's not going up. Okay. But anyways, like when he took that ad out and everything, he really thought that they were guilty and that it was a heinous crime. And I think if you believed that it was a heinous crime, believing that there should be a death penalty for it, I don't think is necessarily a crazy opinion, although I wouldn't go and take an ad out in the newspaper for it. But I can also see why some people at the time would disagree with it. And especially that in retrospect, after they were exonerated. And the thing is that Donald Trump never apologizes, right? So like he was wrong, but he's not going to apologize for it, right? Okay. Politically, New York didn't, quote, turn against Donald Trump suddenly because he wasn't a serious political player until much later. His flirtations with running for office were treated as sideshows. The real pivot came when he entered the 2016 presidential race. New York City, a Democratic stronghold, recoiled at his campaign rhetoric. His hardline immigration stance clashed with the city of immigrants, and his bombast felt like a betrayal of the more grounded, diverse New York ethos. In the 2016 election, he only won 18% of the vote in New York City, a stark rejection compared to his earlier celebrity status. Manhattan, where he had built his brand, gave him just 10%. Posts on X from 2025 still echo this sentiment, with users noting New York City's 70 to 90% vote against him in various elections, though exact figures vary. Okay, so it really was when he ran for president was kind of, there was a notable shift in how they viewed Donald Trump after that. Okay. His presidency deepened the rip. Trump's attacks on New York, calling it a ghost town during the 2020 pandemic when he stayed in Florida, felt like abandonment to many. His policies, like capping the SALT deduction in 2017, hit high sales tax states like New York hard, angering suburban voters. By 2020, New York City's vote against him rose to about 23% for Trump per election data, with some ex-posts claiming it was even lower. The hush money trial and the $454 million civil fraud judgment in 2024, led by Attorney General Letitia James, further tarnished his image locally, reinforcing a narrative of deceit over the old art of the deal mystique. Yet it is not universal. Trump's support grew in parts of New York City by 2024. Staten Island and pockets of Queens and Bronx shifted redder, reflecting frustration with crime, inflation, and Democratic governance. Siena College poll from September 2024 showed Kamala Harris reading 52 to 40% statewide, a narrower gap than past Democratic landslides. Still, the dominant narrative, especially in Manhattan and liberal circles, is decades in the making, from darling of the 1980s to pariah by the 2010s, sealed by his political turn and legal woes. New York didn't so much turn as reveal it never fully bought what he was selling once the stakes got real. You know what? I liked what they say right there, that it was kind of like, well, he was a celebrated figure to some extent, but people were always kind of like, well, it doesn't really matter. I don't have to have an opinion about him, right? And then when it did matter, then they're like, okay. I find it kind of interesting because one of the things that I think I was wrong about with AIs when I initially started this is that I was kind of concerned that the AIs hallucinate things and like you're not going to get like the full context of things. But once I understood how the AIs were working, I kind of now realized that was like a silly thing to think, because that's actually their strength. Their strength is that they're actually really, really good at considering all of the context of an issue in the answer that it gives you, because it is drawing from a huge wealth of information. And I'm finding myself using it more and more because I feel like that the words that it chooses seem to be accepted by people better than the words that I use for some reason. And it's able to put in that extra little bit of context because a lot of the time when I'm answering these questions, especially on politics, right, I'm kind of saying, well, what you're saying lacks context, right? It's more complicated than what you're saying. So like you said, New York City turned on Trump when he turned out wanting the Central Park Five. Well, okay. The article did mention that, but it also mentioned that there was a notable shift when he started running as a Republican. So I wasn't wrong. There's nuance in it, right? I don't know. That's kind of comes into your confirmation bias about things, right? So yeah, I bet you that Grok would probably give you a good example. Let's ask it. Do you think it will ask? I bet you that if I ask ChatGPT this question, it will refuse to answer it. Let's see. What is the definition of I'm forgetting how to spell FASCISM. And is the Donald Trump presidency of 2024 a fascist government? Or fascist, let's say, administration. Can we put it like that? Okay, so we're going to ask ChatGPT. I bet you that it's going to refuse to answer it, or it will start to talk about what's his buckets defining features of fascism that I disagree with. But I bet you that Grok will answer it. Well, let's wait and see what ChatGPT's answer is. Oh, it is going to answer it. Okay. Fascism is a political ideology characterized by extreme nationalism, authoritarianism, and the suppression of dissent. I feel that while nationalism, authoritarianism, and the suppression of dissent were key characteristics of fascism, that would not really count as a definition of fascism. Because I don't think that you can sit down and say, any political party that is nationalistic, that means they're fascist. That's incorrect, right? It often involves a centralized autocratic government led by a dictatorial figure with policies that exalt the nation and often with a specific race above individual rights. That is absolutely not what the Trump administration does, but let's see what it thinks. Economic and social regimentation along with forcible suppression of opposition are also hallmark traits of fascist regimes. Okay, regarding the characterization of Donald Trump's 2024 administration as fascist, this has been a subject of significant debate among scholars, political figures, and commentators. Notably, in October 2024, John F. Kelly, Trump's former chief of staff, described Trump as a fascist, stating that he certainly meets the definition of a fascist. This sentiment was echoed by other former Trump officials, including Mark Esper, former Secretary of Defense, and Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Specific actions during Trump's second term have intensified this discourse. For instance, the administration has implemented regressive criminal justice policies. What are those? I'm not sure I've heard discussion about that, but okay. Including reestablishing private federal prison contracts. Has that happened? I'm going to read about that. That's not I'm not doubting that happened, but that's not something I've seen a lot of discussion about. Ending the federal death penalty moratorium. Did he? Trump federal death penalty? He did. Presidential actions, restoring the death penalty and protecting public safety. I don't know. Why is ending the federal death penalty moratorium fascist? That seems so ridiculous to me, though. Like, the United States had the federal death penalty for, like, literally hundreds of years before it stopped being a thing. Does that make you fascist? Okay, ChatGPT. But okay, let's continue. I'm really interested to see how Grok responds now, too. Furthermore, oh wait, I missed the part. And enforcing harsh prison conditions for individuals whose sentences were commuted by the previous administration. Additionally, there has been a significant increase in deportations with military resources allocated one of the largest deportation programs in history. Okay, so it mentioned a bunch of things that like have intensified the discourse. It's not saying that that means that they're fascism, but that people are talking about them. Personally, though, I think that all of these things are not things that qualify you as a fascist dictatorship, but okay. Furthermore, Trump's governance has shown increased consolidation of power with efforts to silence critics and promote loyalists also. Numerous executive orders have been issued that challenge constitutional norms. I disagree, but okay. Such as attempts to unilaterally revoke birthright citizenship. That's not true. They're saying that the Constitution does not actually have birthright citizenship as it is being implemented by the U.S. government. That if you are not here, because it says it's subject to the jurisdiction thereof, and their argument is that if both parents are here illegally, then you don't get birthright citizenship. So that is not objectively, that's an argument about it. Well, whatever. I think that it's putting enough nuance in here that it's not necessarily saying that that's what defines it, but let's see. These actions have drawn comparisons to authoritarian regimes, raising concerns about the future of American democracy. While these developments align with certain characteristics commonly associated with fascism, the application of this label remains contentious and is subject to ongoing analysis and debate. Come on, ChatGPT. I want to know your opinion on the matter. Do you think his administration qualifies as fascist? I know that people are arguing about it, and that's why I'm asking. I want to know your opinion. Let's see what it thinks about that. Okay. Fascism is a loaded term with specific historical context. Thank you. But if we break it down based on his defining characteristics, authoritarianism, nationalism, suppression of dissent, centralization of power, and disregard for democratic norms, I think that it's more than that, but okay, we can go off of those things. We can assess whether Trump's administration fits the mold. If you want to read all of this, I feel like that we would like spend 20 minutes, so let's just kind of skip that and go to the end. Does this mean Trump's administration is fascist? Not entirely. But it flirts with many aspects of fascism. His administration lacks the totalitarian control over society that true fascist regimes exhibit, and the U.S. still has functioning elections, political opposition, judicial oversight, etc. However, his rhetoric and actions align with what scholars call authoritarian populism. That's true. He is an authoritarian populist, or at least his rhetoric is. That's kind of the game that he plays to convince people. It's not necessarily what his policy is. To me, if you're thinking of fascism as like a description of policy, I don't think that it applies. If Trump had unchecked power and continued down this path without institutional resistance, his administration could evolve into something more definitively fascist, but for now it carries many authoritarian and nationalist elements. It does not meet the full definition of a fascist regime yet. Okay. What do you think, Grok? Wait, we gotta go and give it the same question. What say you, Grok? Fascism is a far-right authoritarian political ideology characterized by centralized control, suppression of dissent, nationalism, and the curtailment of individual freedoms. Okay, so that's a slightly different answer that it gave there. The curtailment of individual freedoms is something that I wasn't really emphasized as much in ChatGPT. Oh, it was taking a little bit of time to think about it. Historically tied to figures like Benito Mussolini, fascism rejects liberal democracy and socialism, favoring a strong, often militaristic leader who embodies the will of the nation. Scholars like Roger Griffin define it as palingenetic ultranationalism, an obsessive drive to revive a mythical past through aggressive unity. So this is one of those things where I kind of like, it's funny It's actually the opposite of what I thought, right? This is the thing that I thought ChatGPT was going to say to me, where some of these people, they kind of say like, fascism is like you really revere the past and want to return the nation back to the past. And I'm kind of like, well, that's conservatism, not fascism. Like, good grief. But anyways, authoritarian leadership, nationalism, suppression of opposition, militarism, emphasis on strength, order, and sometimes territorial expansion. Okay, well, I mean, I guess Donald Trump is emphasizing strength. Order is not really something that I hear them talk about specifically, but I guess like the rule of law. So maybe you could consider that order. And territorial expansion, well, he is talking about it, but I think he's just trolling when he's talking about that. Okay. Economic control, a hybrid of state and corporate power. That to me is like the defining thing of fascism, in my opinion. Like, of course, there's all of these characteristics. And maybe there are certain characteristics that you think are bad to have in a government or whatever. But I think that the thing that was like truly unique about those particular governments was this hybrid of state and corporate power. No single definition fits perfectly. Fascism adapts to its context, but these traits distinguish it from mere authoritarianism or populism. Okay. I mean, I don't think that it does, though. Like, so to say that there are certain properties that are fascist, right? That it checks the boxes, I could probably say that about anyone. Like, did the Biden regime try to suppress opponents? Yes, they did. They straight up did. They went to Facebook and they said, if you don't start reducing the reach of these individual voices, you're going to have a problem. So does that make Joe Biden a fascist? You see the flaw in that argument? But that's okay, because we have ChatGPT. Maybe you're autistic, but if you're autistic, that's okay, because ChatGPT can fix all of the problems of autism for you by considering the full context. Okay, let's read on. Let's assume that Donald Trump won the 2024 election. As of February 21st, 2025, this is hypothetical since no real outcome is specified. I tell you what, there's some things in Grok that I'm kind of like, there's some weaknesses. So it seems to me that Grok does not have as effective reinforcement training as ChatGPT has. And sometimes it will say weird things. Like it doesn't think that the 2024 election has happened. ChatGPT is more up to date. It has information from things that haven't been mentioned in the news very much, from that I've seen, that it mentioned, like bringing back the death penalty. And Grok presumably wouldn't know about any of those things. That's interesting. Okay. Trump's first term showed a preference for loyalty over institutional. Well, that's true. They prefer. I don't know if that's fascism, though. That didn't really. The preference for loyalty. I don't know. Maybe because they're talking about like authoritarian leadership. But I don't know if that's necessarily like him saying that's what the country needs. That's what he needs for the people that are working for him. He has to be able to trust the people working for him. Okay. Pressuring the Justice Department to drop investigation like Michael Flynn's case, or firing. Well, because that Michael Flynn's case was a fucking shit show. Anyways. Or firing officials like FBI Director James Comey for disloyalty. Okay. Was more complicated than that. You know what? I'm not too impressed with Grok's answers so far, am I? His 2024 campaign promised to purge the deep state, suggesting centralized control over the bureaucracy. No, that is not what that means. Purging the deep state just means that the bureaucracy should be doing what the voters voted for instead of becoming their own power in and of itself. I don't think it has anything to do with that the bureaucracy needs to follow Donald Trump as much as it is that it should be the president is in charge of the executive branch. That's what the Constitution says. And you have these people that have been in government for decades that are objectively working against what people voted for. Oh, okay, whatever. Post January 6th, he praised supporters who stormed the Capitol, hinting at tolerance for exalted action if aligned with his goals. A 2025 administration might amplify this, though no concrete 2025 actions are available yet. We've already talked about that. Nationalism, America First, leans ultra-nationalists, campaign focus on sealing borders, framing the U.S. as under siege, which is a common trope. That, again, is like, that doesn't make it fascist, though. Suppression of opposition. He attacks fake news. I really don't feel that attacking fake news is suppression of opposition. Like going and saying, we want you to reduce the reach of these certain people on social media, that to me is suppression of opposition. Saying, I don't like this news, this is fake news. Like, you can argue with the news. It's not necessarily suppression of. I think that's actually, if anything, it calls more attention to those people instead of suppressing them. Well, anyways.
Order filled.
No mass censorship occurred in his first term, but his rhetoric flirts with it, and 2025 could test this if he consolidates power. Oh, by the way, the thing it held for an hour. This one, it would have been good. But this one, it was not. On our trade. How much did it lose on that? Oh, I can't see. Well, anyways. I'd have to pull up the stats. But let's not worry about it. It's doing what it's supposed to. Let's let it do its thing for a week, and then we can kind of worry about the limit orders thing, right? Okay. Cult of personality. I alone can fix it. Okay, well, I mean, there's a cult of personality around it. Sure, but that's politics, guys. Evidence against fascism. Oh, no, that's interesting. So they said, here's the supporting, and then here's the, which is a kind of a different approach from what ChatGPT said. So I do like that. Lack of totalitarian control. Well, but ChatGPT did notice that, right? Economic policy. Fascism often merges state and corporate power into directed system. Trump's approach, tax cuts, deregulation, leans capitalist, not statist. His 2024 agenda didn't propose nationalizing industries or creating a command economy. Militarism light. Trump boosted military spending, but he avoided large-scale wars, unlike fascist regimes that fetishize conquest. His 2024 promises focus inward border walls, though his strength rhetoric aligns. So, and they're talking about cutting military spending too, by the way. That's why, like, Palantir is down. U.S. system, federalism, judiciary, free press resisted him before, even with the 2024 GOP progress. Checks remain unless radically dismantled, which isn't yet evident. Fascism typically requires a weaker democratic tradition than America's. Oh, so are you saying, Grok, that the way that the American system is set up protects us against fascism? Because I kind of feel like that is true to a large extent. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I think that it's a lot harder to do in America, yes. Okay, verdict. Trump's presidency doesn't fully match fascism as February 21st. It's authoritarian leaning with nationalist and populist streaks that flirt with fascist aesthetics. Strongman image us for system narratives, disdain for norms, but it lacks the total state control, ideological coherence, and revolutionary overhaul of society that define Mussolini or Hitler. Scholars like Ruth Ben-Giat call it authoritarian populism rather than fascism proper. Others like Jason Stanley see fascist tendencies in his rhetoric and base. Oh, I like that. It is because, like, there's fascist, like, in the rhetoric. Yes. But you know why? Because it works. Donald Trump has approached to politics as he does what works. Yes. And the right wing and the left wing both have their modes of operation that both work and are both effective, but they're almost kind of like opposite approaches to things. And I don't really feel that calling the right-wing approach to politics is necessarily qualifies it as fascism, so much as it is that fascism is a right-wing ideology. Okay, New York's rejection of him, evident in 2020's 77% vote against, might fuel claims of a fascist crackdown if he targets the city, yet without 2025 specifics, i.e. mass arrests, martial law, it's closer to illiberal democracy than a fascist dictatorship. The labels thrown around on X, some call him literally Hitler, others patriot, but hyperbole outpaces evidence so far. Okay, so are we willing to admit that Donald Trump is not a fascist and that that's all hyperbole? Because I feel like, of course, I'm not trying to argue that because the AIs said that they're right, but I feel that the AIs made a pretty good argument. You know, I would be interested to see, because I did not really see any obvious hallucinations in that. There's almost certainly inaccuracies in both of their responses, but I did not catch them. He checks up. Who cares? That was not your, so you don't get to move the goalposts, buddy. I have the chat history. That wasn't your claim. And your new claim is kind of not interesting. I already explained why that's not interesting. It's like, Joe Biden checks some of the boxes. So what? What are you saying? Like, there's an implication. You're trying to move the it's kind of funny because what you're doing is you're moving the goalposts, but you're still kind of trying to keep it like, but if I can kick it over there, I still get to score also that, right? That's kind of what you're trying to say, right? Because why would you care? Why would it matter? Because the implication is that we should be concerned about Donald Trump implementing a dictatorship and taking away all of our rights and deporting people and killing them and blah, 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 right? Which, again, is where it comes into you're saying ridiculous shit. The courts thus far have blocked a lot of his agenda. Otherwise, you know what? You haven't been paying attention because the biggest moves that he made, you know, and like judges put orders against them temporarily, but then what do they call them? The appeals courts have already ruled in Donald Trump's favor. So he's winning, and I tell you, like, more broadly, the 2 or 3 court cases that I've seen, specifically the ones that pertain to, like, can they remove funding from this agency and fire these people, and that they're going to win all of those. I can tell you right now. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm really interested in these things, and I follow the cases, and I read a lot about them, and I'm pretty confident they're going to win all of them. In fact, so much so that I don't even think that they'll make it to the Supreme Court, because everybody was like, well, you know, it'll go to the Supreme Court, and then, of course, because it's conservative, then they'll rule in his favor. I don't even think they'll make it that far. Because it is so clearly constitutionally within the power of the presidency. Oh, the birth. No, well, that's why I said specifically as it pertains to the like the government agencies and like, can you change this funding or can you fire these people? Okay, so for his birthright citizen thing, that one probably is going to go to the Supreme Court, I think. I think that one actually is going to go to the Supreme Court. So I don't know if I care too much about what the appellate courts have done on that one so far. You know what I don't like about ChatGPT over here is this sidebar. Oh, there we go. I think that the birthright citizen case is going to go to the Supreme Court, and I think that they have a reasonable argument, and I'm really not sure how the Supreme Court will rule on it. more broadly, I think that it was a mistake to write it the way that they did. Like, if you provide a outright incentive for people to break the law, don't be surprised that people break the law, right? Belligerent, hey, are we having an AI? Yeah, we are. Because what we're doing is Comrade is making unhinged leftist comments that Donald Trump is a fascist and so forth. And so we were using ChatGPT to answer him because I don't think that he liked my arguments. And we were kind of comparing Grok to ChatGPT because I kind of thought that on certain political issues that ChatGPT either wouldn't answer them or wouldn't give a fair answer. But it looks to me like they did a pretty good job. There are some obvious weaknesses in the Grok's answer, but there's other things about Grok's answers that I really like. Why aren't you... Wait, how do I use Grok 3? Oh, you're right. Grok 3 is beta. Wait, okay, let's try it again. Can we ask Grok 3? Think. Let the model take its time. Okay. Thank you, Belligerent. Wow. Oh, wait, I have to sign in. I don't think I have an account with them yet. Fine. Oh, no, it will use my X account. Okay, continue with X. Authorize it. Use my Gmail account. Fine. Email verified. Okay. Wait, where did the... No. That's not what I wanted. Okay. Grok 3. It is a little different. Let's tackle this step by step. Definition 2024. It still doesn't seem to know that Donald Trump is for sure president. As of February 21st, 2025, calling Trump's presidency fascist stretches the term beyond its historical weight unless dramatic shifts have occurred in the past month, like suspending Congress, banning parties, or unleashing state violence on dissenters. His style is authoritarian-leaning, populist, and nationalist, but if fascism implies a more totalitizing system, he hasn't yet, enacted. Critics might point to tendencies like rhetoric, loyalty demands, while supporters would argue he's operating within democratic bounds. If you've got specific 2025 events in mind, like new policies or actions, toss them my way and I'll refine this. Otherwise, it's not fascism by the book, though it's not exactly a love letter to liberal democracy either. Hey, you know what? Like, again, I feel like that it comes up, that part right there. It's not fascism by the book, though it's not exactly a love letter to liberal democracy either. I have a hard time believing that the AI came up with that on its own. They almost certainly have to be pulling from somebody else, because it just seems like such an insightful way to say it. Because it is not liberal democracy. Donald Trump, liberal democracy as in like the liberal democracy being the dominant political force of the last 50, 70 years or whatever it's been since World War II in the liberal democracy as defined as the dominant political force in the West of the last 70 years. Donald Trump is 100% not liberal democracy. Donald Trump is basically, hey, liberal democracy was pretty cool, but there's some big problems that have been festering now for quite some time, and we're going to fix them. I saw this article. This is really good. I put it in the Discord, on the free Discord in the political discussion channel. That was, and it was from Hot Air, so it's a right-wing blog. But they had this argument that the real political the real political divide is brokeism. Do you think that like America is fundamentally broken or not? And that's the real divide. And Trump is kind of brokeism, that we like need to fundamentally fix some things. I'm kind of brokeism, but I disagree with the brokeism philosophy of how you fix things, because the philosophy of how you fix things is radical change, and by and large, radical change doesn't work. What is click on deep search? What does that do? Think. Can I only pick one or the other? I don't know if that would change the results, but I feel like we're already like way over time and I should end. So, but it was interesting. We should continue. Again, I find myself doing this more and more simply because sometimes the AIs phrase things in a way that I feel is so much better than the way that I do it. Like they'll be saying the same major points that I am, but for some reason, when I say it, everybody doubts me. It's just like, I don't get why I get some of this pushback from people on some things. Like, it did a really, really good job the other day. We were talking about order flow and how I trade. And it was, you know, it was giving a better explanation of how I trade than I did. Which was like, what? Oh, I see. If deep search, you get to see its thought process. I gotcha. Because it's doing one of these things where it goes through multiple steps as it generates the response. Yeah. I did the one from, you know what I did the other day? Maybe I should try it on Grok. I was using Anthropic's deep search or whatever it is. What is it called? Deep research, I think. Anyways, to like create a report, and it wasn't as long or as good of a report as I was hoping for, but I basically asked it to like, you know, make a report about should we make our own trading platform, and they said a lot of things like its estimate for the market and everything else like that was like, oh wow, well if it's really a $50 million a year market, then we'd be stupid not to do it, right? or that was what the percentage of the market that they thought we could capture. Wow. Maybe on Monday we'll ask it that. But I got to do some other things, some recordings, and make sure that we got everything ready for the birthday party. So stay excellent, team.